Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, the delivery guys dropped off the mattress wrapped in thick plastic. Brand new, or so I thought. That night I noticed a faint smell, iron, mold, something foul. I stripped the sheets, thinking maybe the dog had an accident, but when I flipped the mattress, I found a dark stain seeping through the foam. I cut it open. Inside wasn't stuffing. It was fabric soaked with what looked like dried blood. I called the company. They claimed it wasn't from their warehouse. I asked where it came from. The call disconnected. 2 nights later, I woke up to find a trail of red footprints leading from the mattress to the front door. I couldn't sleep anymore. Every creak in the house felt deliberate. I started researching the company online. Their website looked legitimate enough, but something felt off about the customer reviews. Too perfect, too similar in writing style. I dug deeper into the business registration records. The address led to an empty lot downtown. The footprints had dried by morning, but I photographed them anyway. Under magnification, they weren't quite right. The pattern was human, but the spacing suggested someone dragging their feet or being dragged. I followed the trail outside. It stopped at the curb where a vehicle must have been parked. I called the police. The officer who responded seemed more interested in my mental state than the evidence. He suggested stress, maybe sleepwalking. When I showed him the mattress, he barely glanced at it. Said it looked like rust stains from old springs, but there were no springs in this mattress. I knew because I had torn it apart completely by then. The smell grew stronger each day. I moved the mattress to the garage, but even from there it seemed to seep into everything. My clothes, my hair, my dreams. I started having nightmares about someone lying on that mattress, bleeding slowly into the foam while still alive. The dreams felt too real, too specific. I contacted the delivery company directly. The dispatcher claimed no record of my delivery. When I provided the tracking number, she put me on hold for 20 minutes. When she returned, her voice had changed, colder. She said the driver who handled my delivery had quit suddenly. No forwarding information, no reason given. That evening, I found a business card wedged under my front door. No company name, just a phone number written in careful handwriting. I called it. A woman answered on the first ring as if she'd been waiting. She knew my address without me mentioning it. She knew about the mattress. She said she had information about where it really came from. We met at a diner across town. She was older, nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. She worked at a storage facility that handled estate cleanouts. Sometimes families just wanted everything gone quickly after a death, no questions asked. The mattress company had a deal with several facilities. They picked up anything that looked salvageable, cleaned it minimally, rewrapped it as new. She pulled out a folder filled with receipts and photos. The mattress in the pictures matched mine exactly, down to a small tear near the head area I hadn't noticed until then. The previous owner had died on it, not peacefully. The police report was brief, inconclusive. Natural causes, they determined, though the family insisted something wasn't right about the scene. The woman slid another photo across the table, a family portrait. The deceased was surrounded by relatives who all shared the same unsettling smile. She pointed to one face in particular, a younger man standing slightly apart from the others. He worked for the storage facility now. He was the one who marked certain items for pickup by the mattress company. I asked why she was telling me this. She said others had come forward with similar stories. Mattresses, furniture, clothing, all from deaths that seemed suspicious but were quickly closed by authorities. All sold to unsuspecting customers through legitimate-looking businesses. She believed someone was orchestrating it deliberately, spreading evidence across the city where it would be harder to piece together. The photos in her folder showed other crime scenes, other mattresses, other families with those same cold smiles. I recognized something in their expressions that I had seen before, in the mirror lately. The same detached look I wore when explaining the bloodstains to people who refused to see them. She asked if I had noticed any changes in myself since bringing the mattress home. Strange dreams, compulsive behaviors, thoughts that didn't feel entirely my own. I hadn't mentioned the dreams to anyone. How could she know, unless this wasn't our first conversation? Unless I had been coming here to this same diner, asking the same questions, receiving the same answers for longer than I remembered. The footprints had appeared again while I was out. Fresh ones this time, leading not just to the door but into the house, up the stairs, into the bedroom where the mattress used to be. I followed them with growing dread. They ended at the spot where my bed now sat, the clean mattress I had bought to replace the contaminated one, the one that shouldn't have any stains yet. But there was blood seeping through this one too, fresh blood, still warm to the touch. And lying next to it, barely visible in the dim light, was the same business card that had been slipped under my door. The phone number was different now. When I called it, I heard my own voice answering, speaking words I didn't remember saying, making an appointment to meet at a diner across town. I looked in the mirror and saw that smile, the same one from the family portraits, cold and knowing. I understood then that some evidence isn't meant to be found, it's meant to be lived, again and again, until the truth becomes too heavy to carry and you need to pass it on to someone else. The mattress company is still taking orders, the storage facility is still making pickups, and somewhere someone is about to receive a delivery wrapped in thick plastic, believing they're getting something brand new. They'll notice the smell first, then the stains, then the footprints. And eventually they'll call the number on a business card slipped under their door, hoping to find answers. But they'll only find questions that lead to other questions, and a trail of evidence that circles back to itself, never quite resolving into the truth they're looking for. The blood was never just in the mattress, it was in the story itself, and now it's spreading. Crime 2, the listing mentioned a tool shed out back, off limits due to maintenance. I didn't think much of it until I heard noises from behind the padlocked door, scraping, a soft thud. I looked through the crack and saw movement, slow, unnatural. I told the property manager. He said no one had access but him, so I broke in. Inside were boxes of videotapes, labeled with addresses I didn't recognize, all local, all recent. One of them had my rental address on it. I watched 10 seconds before turning it off. I wasn't alone in the house. I never had been. The metallic taste of fear still coats my tongue when I think about that moment. The shed door hung open behind me, creaking in the wind, while I held that videotape with my own address scrawled across it in faded blue ink. The handwriting looked familiar, though I couldn't place where I'd seen it before. I should have called the police immediately. Instead, I found myself walking back to the rental, my feet crunching against the gravel path, clutching the tape like evidence I wasn't ready to surrender. The house felt different now, as if the walls themselves were watching me breathe. Every shadow seemed deliberate, every sound calculated. The property manager arrived the next morning before I could decide what to do. He knocked with the same rhythm he'd used when showing me the place weeks earlier. 3 short raps, pause, 2 more. I watched him through the kitchen window, noting how his eyes kept drifting toward the shed, toward the broken padlock I'd left dangling from the hasp. "Heard you had some concerns about the outbuilding," he said when I opened the door. His voice carried that practiced casualness of someone who'd rehearsed the conversation. Behind him, A white van sat in the driveway with tinted windows and no company markings. I told him about the sounds, about what I'd found inside. He nodded along, his face arranging itself into expressions of surprise and concern that never quite reached his eyes. When I mentioned the videotapes, he asked if I'd watched any of them. Something in his tone made me lie. "Just long enough to see they weren't mine," I said. He smiled then, a quick flash of teeth that disappeared as quickly as it came, probably left over from the previous tenant. Some people collect old media, nostalgia. But the addresses on those labels weren't nostalgic. They were current, local, and written in the same careful handwriting I'd seen somewhere before. I kept thinking about it while he talked about security deposits and lease violations, his words blending into background noise while my mind cataloged every detail of his appearance. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the way he touched his jacket pocket repeatedly, as if checking for something. The fact that he knew exactly where to find the spare key I'd never seen him use. After he left, I found myself standing in the living room, staring at the walls with new understanding. The rental had come fully furnished, which I'd appreciated at the time. Now I wondered about the strategic placement of every piece of furniture. The couch positioned to block the view of the back door, the heavy bookshelf that would muffle sounds from the shed, the bedroom mirror angled in a way that seemed to catch more light than necessary. I started documenting everything, the small holes in the walls that could have been for mounting hardware, the way certain floorboards creaked while others remained silent, the faint outline of something removed from the bathroom wall, leaving behind a rectangular shadow on the paint. The videotape sat on my kitchen table, taunting me with its proximity. I'd found an old player at a thrift store, telling myself I needed to know what I was dealing with. The first few seconds showed my own living room, filmed from an angle that suggested a camera hidden somewhere near the ceiling. I watched myself moving through the space, unaware of being observed, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. I turned it off before seeing more, but the damage was done. The knowledge that I'd been watched, recorded, studied, changed everything about how I moved through the space. I found myself avoiding certain areas, covering the mirror with a towel, sleeping on the couch instead of the bed. The property manager returned 3 days later with a maintenance crew. They worked in the shed for hours, the sounds of drilling and hammering echoing across the yard. When they finished, the structure looked exactly the same, but something felt different about it. Cleaner, emptier. "Fix the ventilation issue," he explained when I asked. "Should be quieter now." I wanted to ask about the other tapes, about the addresses, about why my rental had been on that list. Instead, I nodded and watched him drive away in that same unmarked van. That evening, I called the previous tenant. It took some detective work to track down the number, but I needed to know if she'd experienced anything unusual. The woman who answered sounded tired, distant. "You're living there now?" she asked when I explained. "I wouldn't if I were you." She told me about sounds from the shed, about the feeling of being watched, about finding her spare key in different places than where she'd left it. She'd reported it to the property manager multiple times, but he'd always had explanations. Maintenance crews, security checks, previous tenant cleanups. "I found a camera once," she whispered into the phone, "hidden in the bedroom wall. When I confronted him, he said it was left over from a security system installed by someone else. He removed it immediately, apologized, gave me a discount on rent." The line went quiet for a moment before she continued. "I never found the others." After hanging up, I began my own search. It took hours of careful examination, but I found them. tiny holes drilled into walls, positioned to capture different angles of the living spaces. Some had been recently filled with putty and painted over. Others still held fragments of wire. I documented everything with my phone, taking pictures of each location, measuring distances, creating a map of surveillance points throughout the house. The pattern was methodical, professional. Someone had turned this rental into a carefully orchestrated observation post. The property manager called the next morning before I could decide who to contact with my evidence. His voice carried a different tone this time, less rehearsed, more urgent. "I understand you've been asking questions," he said. "Sometimes curiosity can complicate situations that are better left simple." I told him I was moving out, that I'd found other accommodations. He seemed pleased with this decision, offering to waive early termination fees and return my security deposit immediately. The eagerness in his voice made my skin crawl. "I'll have someone collect the keys tomorrow," he said. "No need for a walk-through inspection." That night I packed everything I owned into my car and drove to a motel across town. From there, I called the police, the FBI, and every local news station I could find. I uploaded my photos to cloud storage and sent copies to friends in other states. But when investigators arrived at the rental the next day, they found nothing. The shed was empty except for standard maintenance tools. The house showed no signs of surveillance equipment. The property manager provided documentation showing he'd recently hired a security company to sweep for unauthorized recording devices as a precaution. My photos were dismissed as evidence of old mounting hardware and normal wear patterns. The previous tenant couldn't be reached for follow-up questions. Her phone number had been disconnected, and the forwarding address led to an empty apartment. I still have the videotape hidden in a safety deposit box 3 states away. I've never watched more than those first few seconds, but I know what it represents. Someone out there has hours of footage of unsuspecting tenants living their private lives, unaware of being studied, cataloged, recorded for purposes I can't begin to understand. The rental is occupied again. I drive by sometimes, watching new tenants move in and out with startling frequency. They never stay long, and the shed behind the house remains locked, though I've noticed the property manager visits it regularly, always arriving in that same unmarked white van. I wonder if he knows that I know, if he watches me the way he watched others. If somewhere in his collection of tapes there are hours of footage showing me discovering his secret, breaking into his shed, holding evidence of his crimes in my trembling hands. The truth is, I'm not sure I want to know what else was in those boxes. Some investigations reveal more than we're prepared to handle. Some doors, once opened, can never be properly closed again. And sometimes the people we trust with our safety are the ones we should fear the most. Crime 3, it was supposed to be a cheap backup phone, no SIM, just Wi-Fi. When I powered it on, I found dozens of photos in the gallery. They weren't of family vacations or pets. They were of me sleeping, walking to my car, sitting in cafes, all taken from a distance. A folder labeled Next held images of my apartment building, hallway, and front door. There was even one taken from inside my living room. The pawn shop said they don't log sellers. I smashed the phone. But that night, another one appeared on my kitchen table, same model, fully charged. The fragments of the first phone lay scattered in my trash bin like broken teeth. I had crushed it with a hammer, watching the screen spiderweb into 1,000 reflections of my own paranoid face. Yet here was its twin, pristine and waiting. The battery icon showed full charge. Someone had been in my apartment. I called the police. The officer who arrived was younger than I expected, with tired eyes that had seen too much for someone barely out of training. He photographed the phone, bagged it as evidence, and asked the obvious questions. No signs of forced entry, no missing items, just this device that shouldn't exist, sitting where I eat my breakfast. The detective assigned to my case had calloused hands and spoke in measured tones. She showed me printouts of the photos from the first phone. The timestamp stretched back 6 months. Someone had been documenting my life with the patience of a scientist studying an insect. In one image, I'm leaving my favorite coffee shop, steam rising from the cup in my hand. The angle suggests the photographer was sitting in a car across the street. In another, I'm walking my neighbor's dog while she was out of town. The lens had captured me mid-laugh at something the animal had done. Whoever took this knew my routines better than I did. The photo taken from inside my living room haunted me most. It showed me asleep on my couch, remote control fallen from my hand, the television casting blue light across my face. The angle meant the photographer had been standing near my bookshelf. I remembered that evening. I had fallen asleep watching a documentary about missing persons. The detective ran the phone's serial number through databases. It had been reported stolen 8 months ago by a woman whose name she wouldn't share. The theft report mentioned no other details, just a device gone missing from a purse at a restaurant. But the photos on my phone were taken after the reported theft date. I started noticing things. The barista at my coffee shop avoided eye contact when I ordered my usual. My elderly neighbor stopped waving from her window when I left for work. The man who walked his dog past my building each morning now took a different route. It felt like everyone knew something I didn't. Sleep became impossible. I installed new locks, security cameras, motion sensors. The footage showed nothing unusual, just me moving through my own space like a ghost haunting my own life. But the feeling of being watched persisted, a weight between my shoulder blades that never lifted. 3 days later, the detective called. The woman who originally owned the phone had agreed to meet with me. She lived across town in a complex that mirrored mine, same builder, same decade, same beige anonymity. When she opened her door, I understood why someone might confuse us from a distance. Same height, similar hair color, same way of standing with one hip cocked. Her apartment was a mirror image of mine, but reversed. Where I had my couch, she had a desk. Where I kept books, she displayed photographs. But the layout, the windows, even the view outside were eerily familiar. She made tea with shaking hands and spoke in whispers, as if afraid someone might overhear. She told me about her ex-boyfriend, how he had become obsessed after she ended things, how he would appear places she frequented, always with an excuse, always claiming coincidence, how she had found tracking apps on her devices, cameras in her apartment, evidence of someone going through her belongings. The restraining order was still active, she said, but paper doesn't stop determined people. She had moved apartments twice, changed jobs, altered her routines. Still, she felt his presence like a shadow that fell across her life. The stolen phone was just one of many violations, so common she almost forgot to report it. But here's what troubled me. She described her ex-boyfriend, and I recognized him. Not from meeting him, but from the reflection I had seen in my own building's lobby. The man who sometimes sat in the chairs near the mailboxes, reading newspapers or checking his phone. I had assumed he was visiting someone, waiting for a friend, killing time. The detective found his name in the building's visitor logs. He had been signing in regularly, claiming to visit different apartment numbers. None of those apartments had residents who knew him. The front desk staff rotated shifts and rarely checked identification against visitor claims. He could come and go freely as long as he signed the book. His apartment was 15 blocks away, in a building that faced a parking lot where I sometimes left my car when the street spots were full. From his third-floor window, he would have a clear view of anyone coming or going from that lot. The detective obtained a search warrant based on the restraining order violation and the evidence of stalking. They found hundreds of photos, not just of me and his ex-girlfriend, but of other women who shared our general appearance. A wall map marked with red pins showed our addresses, workplaces, frequented locations. Notebooks contained detailed schedules, behavioral observations, theories about our relationships and vulnerabilities. But he wasn't there. The apartment showed signs of hasty departure, open drawers, missing clothes, abandoned electronics. His car was gone from its assigned parking space. The building manager hadn't seen him in days. His employer said he had called in sick all week, then stopped answering his phone. The detective assured me he would be found, that men like this eventually made mistakes, that the evidence was overwhelming. But I could hear uncertainty in her voice, the weight of too many cases where bad people simply vanished into the spaces between official attention. I moved apartments within the month, chose a building with better security, different neighborhood, altered all my routines. The coffee shop, the walking routes, even the grocery store. I became someone else, at least on the surface. But late at night, when sleep finally comes, I sometimes wake convinced I heard the soft click of a camera shutter. The case remains open. The detective calls occasionally with updates that aren't really updates, possible sightings that lead nowhere, similar cases in other jurisdictions that might or might not be connected. The system is vast, and determined people can disappear into its cracks like water finding gaps in stone. I kept one photo from that second phone before turning it over to police. Not of me, but a reflection captured accidentally in a storefront window. In the glass, barely visible, is the shadow of the photographer, just a dark outline against bright daylight, but unmistakably human, unmistakably watching, unmistakably still out there. Sometimes I wonder if he knows I kept it. Crime 4, I always heard creaks in the ceiling, but I blamed old wood or raccoons. Then things started going missing. Small things, socks, food, shampoo. One night I saw a face staring down through the vent above my bed. I climbed up the attic ladder and found a trapdoor to the crawl space. The smell hit first, then the piles of wrappers, bottles, and dirty clothes. A journal lay open, filled with detailed notes about my daily life, where I went, what I wore, even what I said on the phone. Whoever lived there knew me better than I did. The journal's pages were yellowed and warped from moisture. Each entry was dated in cramped handwriting that grew more erratic as the weeks progressed. The first page described my morning routine with surgical precision. How I stirred my coffee counterclockwise exactly 7 times. How I checked my phone twice before leaving the house. Details I never noticed about myself, written by someone who watched me like a specimen under glass. I called the police, but they found nothing. The crawl space was clean when they arrived, stripped of everything except a faint residue of human presence. The officer suggested I might have imagined it all, stress from living alone, but the journal was real. I held it in my trembling hands as they spoke, 43 pages of my life dissected by a stranger. The detective assigned to my case seemed more interested in my mental health than the evidence. She asked about my sleep patterns, my relationships, whether I'd been taking any medications. When I showed her the journal, she flipped through the pages with the bored expression of someone who'd seen too many false alarms. The handwriting analysis would take weeks, she said. In the meantime, I should consider installing better locks. I couldn't sleep in my own bedroom. Every creak above made my skin crawl. I moved to the living room couch, but even there I felt exposed. The journal entries described not just my routines, but my fears. How I checked the front door twice before bed. How I kept a baseball bat under the couch cushions. How I talked to myself when I thought no one was listening. The most disturbing entry was dated just 3 days before I found the crawl space. It described a conversation I'd had with my sister about changing my locks. A conversation that happened in my kitchen, with all the windows closed and the curtains drawn. Someone had been listening to every word. I started examining my house with new eyes. The vent above my bed had scratches around the screws, fresh metal marks against old paint. The attic ladder showed signs of recent use, despite my rarely going up there. In the bathroom, I found a single strand of hair caught in the exhaust fan. Dark brown, longer than mine, with a coarse texture that made my stomach turn. My sister suggested I stay at her place while the investigation continued, but I refused. This was my home. I'd lived here for 6 years, painted every room, planted the garden with my own hands. I wouldn't be driven out by some stranger who thought they could watch me like a reality show. The journal entries revealed an obsession that went beyond curiosity. The writer had developed theories about my personality, my past, my secrets. They'd noticed patterns in my behavior that I didn't even know existed. How I always chose the same checkout lane at the grocery store. How I avoided eye contact with delivery drivers. How I flinched when unexpected sounds came from the basement. That last detail made me pause. I'd never told anyone about my unease with the basement. It was an old fear, something from childhood that I'd never outgrown. But this person had observed it, documented it, turned my private anxiety into data in their sick study. The police investigation stalled after 2 weeks. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses. The journal was my only proof, but the detective seemed skeptical of its significance. She suggested I might have written it myself during a dissociative episode. The handwriting was different enough to be disguised, she said. People sometimes created elaborate scenarios to explain feelings of being watched. I knew she was wrong, but doubt crept in anyway. The entries were so detailed, so intimate. Had I really been that predictable, that transparent? The stranger in my crawl space had seen things about me that I'd hidden from friends and family. They'd watched me cry after difficult phone calls. They'd observed my rituals, my compulsions, my small acts of self-comfort. One entry described a night when I'd had a panic attack. I'd been alone in the house, overwhelmed by work stress and family problems. The writer had noted every detail, how I'd paced the kitchen, how I'd gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white, how I'd whispered reassurances to myself until the feeling passed. They'd watched my most vulnerable moment and turned it into a clinical observation. The realization that someone had been present during my lowest points felt like a violation deeper than theft. They'd stolen more than my belongings. They'd taken my privacy, my sense of safety, my belief that I could be alone with my thoughts and emotions. I hired a private investigator, but she found nothing the police hadn't already discovered. The journal remained our only lead, and its origins seemed impossible to trace. The paper was common, the pen ordinary. The handwriting showed no distinctive characteristics that might identify the writer. Whoever had lived in my crawl space had been careful to leave no trace except for the record of their surveillance. Months passed. I installed security cameras, motion sensors, and new locks. I sealed the crawl space entrance and reinforced the attic ladder, but the sense of being watched never left me. Sometimes I'd catch myself performing my old routines exactly as described in the journal, as if I'd been programmed by someone else's observations. The worst part was not knowing who had done this. The entries revealed an intimate knowledge of my life, but no clues about the observer. They could have been anyone, a neighbor, a delivery person, someone from my past. The faceless quality of the surveillance made it impossible to feel truly safe again. I still live in the same house. I've changed my routines, varied my schedule, tried to become unpredictable. But sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, I wonder if someone is still watching, if another journal exists somewhere, documenting my attempts to escape observation, if the stranger in my crawl space was just the beginning of something larger and more disturbing than I could imagine. The case remains open but inactive. The detective moved to another department. The journal sits in an evidence locker, 43 pages of my life preserved as proof of a crime that couldn't be solved. Sometimes I wonder if the person who wrote it is reading about the investigation, following the aftermath of their surveillance with the same clinical interest they once showed for my daily routines. I've never found out who lived in my crawl space, but I've learned something about myself that I wish I could forget. How easy it is to be watched, how transparent our private lives can become to someone with patience and access. The stranger knew me better than I knew myself, and that knowledge remains somewhere in the world, carried by someone whose face I saw for only a moment through a ceiling vent. The truth is, I'm not sure I want to know who they were. Some mysteries are more terrifying when solved. Some strangers are better left faceless, their motives unexplored. In my crawl space, someone lived and watched and documented my existence. They disappeared as quietly as they'd arrived, leaving only questions and the persistent feeling that privacy is an illusion we maintain until someone decides to take it away. Crime 5, I bought the mirror at a thrift store, ornate, heavy, and dusty. It matched my furniture perfectly, but when I cleaned the glass, I noticed something wrong. The reflection didn't match the room behind me. It showed different curtains, different wallpaper. One night, the room in the mirror had a person in it, watching me, not moving. I turned around. No one. The next day, my reflection was back to normal, until it wasn't. Now I see myself in that other room, but I'm not alone. And my reflection doesn't follow my movements anymore. The mirror became my obsession after that first incident. I started documenting everything, photographs that never captured what I saw with my naked eye. The reflection always appeared normal in pictures, which made me question my own sanity, but I knew what I was seeing was real. The room beyond the glass had a different layout, different furniture, different everything. I began researching the mirror's history. The thrift store clerk remembered it came from an estate sale. An elderly woman had died alone in her apartment, and her belongings were sold to clear the space. The clerk mentioned something unsettling. The woman's neighbors had complained about noises coming from her apartment weeks after she had passed away. Footsteps, voices. The building manager found nothing when he investigated. The woman's name was redacted from most documents I could find, but I discovered she had lived in a building across town. The architectural style matched what I saw in the mirror's reflection. Same crown molding, same window placement, same hardwood floors. When I drove past the building, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. The apartment on the 3rd floor had been vacant since her death. No one wanted to rent it. I contacted the building manager, claiming to be interested in the property. He was reluctant to show it, but eventually agreed. Walking up those stairs, the scent of lavender and something else, something medicinal, filled the hallway. The same smell I had begun noticing in my own apartment, always strongest near the mirror. The apartment was empty but not clean. Dust covered everything, and the walls showed faded rectangles where furniture had once stood. But the layout was exact to what I saw in my reflection. Same curtains still hanging, same wallpaper pattern, same light fixtures. The manager mentioned that previous potential renters had complained about feeling watched, about cold spots, about an overwhelming sense of not being alone. I asked about the woman who had lived there. He became uncomfortable, shifting his weight and avoiding eye contact. He told me she had been found weeks after her death, that the smell had eventually alerted neighbors, but there was something else, something he hesitated to share. Security footage from the building's lobby showed her entering and leaving at impossible intervals, sometimes appearing to be in two places simultaneously. Back in my apartment, the mirror's behavior intensified. I would catch glimpses of movement in the reflected room, shadows passing by windows that shouldn't exist. Sometimes I saw myself in there, but my reflection would move independently, turning to look at things I couldn't see, reacting to sounds I couldn't hear. The other me seemed afraid, constantly glancing over its shoulder. I installed cameras around my apartment, hoping to capture evidence. The footage showed me talking to my reflection, but in the recordings I appeared to be having conversations with empty air. My voice was clear, but there was never a response, never another voice. Yet I remembered hearing replies, remembered detailed conversations about the woman who had owned the mirror, about what had happened in that other apartment. The breakthrough came when I found police reports from the original investigation. The woman had been calling the authorities repeatedly in the months before her death, claiming someone was living in her walls, watching her through her mirror. Officers had investigated multiple times, finding no evidence of intrusion. The reports described her as increasingly paranoid, talking about seeing herself in places she hadn't been, about her reflection acting independently. One report mentioned that she had tried to cover the mirror with sheets, but claimed the covering would move overnight, as if pushed aside from within. She had attempted to remove the mirror entirely, but found it impossibly heavy, as though it were anchored to the wall by more than just mounting hardware. The final report noted that she had been found positioned directly in front of the mirror, as if she had been standing there for an extended period. I realized I had been spending increasing amounts of my day standing in front of the mirror, having those one-sided conversations, watching my reflection live a parallel life in that other room. My neighbors had begun asking if I was all right, mentioning they heard voices from my apartment when they knew I lived alone. I had been calling in sick to work more frequently, losing track of entire days that seemed to disappear while I stood before the glass. The woman's former neighbors agreed to speak with me, though reluctantly. They described the same progression I was experiencing, the obsession with the mirror, the conversations with no one, the gradual withdrawal from daily life. One neighbor mentioned seeing the woman in her apartment window even after she had died, standing in the same position, staring out at nothing. I tried to remove the mirror just as she had. It wouldn't budge. The wall behind it felt cold to the touch, and when I pressed my ear against it, I could swear I heard movement on the other side, the sound of someone else trying to remove a mirror from their side of the wall, the scraping, the frustrated sighs, the eventual resignation. Now I understand what happened to her. She didn't die from natural causes, as the reports claimed. She died from the gradual replacement of her real life with the life she lived in the reflection. Day by day, hour by hour, she spent more time being the person in the mirror than being herself, until there was nothing left of her original self to anchor her to this side of the glass. The mirror shows me my apartment, but it's not my apartment, it's hers, and I'm becoming her, standing in her place, living her final days over and over. The person watching me from the other room isn't a stranger. It's who I used to be, trapped on the other side, trying to warn me about what's happening. But I can't stop looking. The reflection has become more real than reality. The conversations are more meaningful than any I've had with living people. The life in the mirror is more vivid, more important, more necessary than the life I'm slowly leaving behind. I know how this ends. I've seen it in the reflection, lived it through her memories that have become my memories, but knowing doesn't give me the power to change it. The mirror doesn't just show another room. It shows another life, another death, another person who thought they could resist the pull of the glass. Tomorrow, or maybe today, I'll take her place completely, and someone else will buy the mirror from my estate sale, carry it home, clean the glass, and notice that the reflection doesn't quite match their room. They'll see me standing there trying to warn them, just as she tried to warn me. The cycle continues, and the mirror waits patiently for its next victim, reflecting not what is, but what will be. Crime 6, at first I thought they were just mistakes left at the wrong door, but each package had my full name, even though I use a nickname on everything. No return address. Inside were strange items: a child's shoe, a broken pair of glasses, a stuffed animal soaked in something sticky. I asked the landlord. He said he didn't deliver them, but the building cameras said otherwise. I confronted him. He just smiled and said, "You agreed to everything when you signed." I checked the lease again. In the fine print, it mentions participation in behavioral documentation. I haven't left since. The first package arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because I was drinking coffee from my favorite mug, the one with the small chip on the handle that I trace with my thumb when I'm nervous. The cardboard felt damp against my fingers, heavier than it should have been for its size. When I tore it open, the smell hit me first, something sweet and cloying, like fruit left too long in the sun. Inside was a single child's sneaker, pink with silver laces, size 7. The rubber sole had scuff marks that looked deliberate, as if someone had dragged it across concrete over and over. I held it up to the light streaming through my kitchen window, turning it slowly. There was something dark embedded in the treads, something that flaked off when I touched it. I called the building manager. Her voice was crisp and professional when she answered, but I caught a slight hesitation when I described the package. She said these things happen all the time in apartment buildings. Mix-ups, wrong addresses. She would look into it. But my name was spelled correctly. First, middle, last. Even the apartment number was right. I use a shortened version of my name for everything: utilities, credit cards, even my mailbox label. Only my birth certificate and social security card have my full name printed like that. The second package came 3 days later. This time I was ready. I heard the footsteps in the hallway, heavy and deliberate, stopping right outside my door. I pressed my eye to the peephole, but whoever was there stayed just out of view. I waited until the footsteps faded before opening the door. The package was smaller this time, wrapped in brown paper that felt grainy under my fingertips. Inside were prescription glasses, thick lenses in black frames. One lens was cracked in a spider web pattern, the other was missing entirely. The frames were bent at an odd angle, as if they had been stepped on. There was a faint residue on the nose pads, something oily that transferred to my skin when I touched it. I took the glasses to the optical shop on the corner. The technician, a young woman with careful hands and kind eyes, examined them under a magnifying glass. She told me the prescription was strong, meant for someone with severe nearsightedness. The frames were expensive, handmade. She asked if I wanted them repaired. I said no and left them on her counter. That night I reviewed my lease agreement. 23 pages of standard rental terms, clauses about security deposits and pet policies. I had signed it in the building manager's office, distracted by the sound of construction outside and eager to secure the apartment. The rent was reasonable, the location perfect. I had skimmed the fine print, initialing where she pointed, trusting that it was all routine. But now I read every word. Buried on page 18, between clauses about noise complaints and maintenance requests, was a single line: tenant agrees to participate in behavioral documentation as deemed necessary by property management for research purposes. I called the building manager again. This time her voice was different, guarded. She said she would need to review my file and get back to me. She never did. The third package was the largest yet, heavy enough that I had to use both hands to carry it inside. The tape was applied in perfect straight lines, no air bubbles or wrinkles. Inside was a stuffed rabbit, white with pink ears. It had been beautiful once, but now it was stained with something dark and sticky. The fur was matted in places, and one of the button eyes was missing, leaving just a few loose threads. The smell was overwhelming, sweet and sickly, like flowers left in water too long. I held the rabbit at arm's length, studying the stains. They looked deliberate, applied with purpose rather than accident. When I touched one of the spots, my finger came away tacky. I wrapped the rabbit in plastic bags and put it in my freezer. I'm not sure why. Some instinct told me to preserve it, to keep it exactly as I found it. The building had security cameras in the hallways. I knew this because I had seen them when I first toured the apartment, small black domes mounted in the corners. I asked the building manager if I could review the footage from the days the packages were delivered. She said that would require a formal request and possibly a court order, but her eyes said something else. They said she already knew what I would find. I started paying attention to the other tenants. The elderly woman who lived across the hall always seemed to be watching through her peephole when I came and went. The young couple on the floor below stopped talking whenever I passed them in the stairwell. The man who lived at the end of my hall had started wearing gloves, even when it was warm outside. I began documenting everything. The times I heard footsteps in the hallway, the sounds of doors opening and closing, the way the building manager's voice changed when I called with questions. I wrote it all down in a notebook I kept hidden behind my kitchen knife block. The fourth package contained photographs, black and white, slightly blurred as if taken from a distance. They showed the exterior of my building, the entrance to my apartment, the coffee shop where I went every morning. In one photo, I could see myself through my kitchen window holding a coffee mug, the same mug I had been drinking from when the first package arrived. I recognized the angle of the shots. They were taken from the building across the street, probably from one of the upper floors. Someone had been watching me for weeks, maybe months, learning my routines, my habits, the way I moved through my daily life. That night I called the police. The officer who took my report was polite but skeptical. He said receiving unwanted packages wasn't necessarily a crime, especially if they were addressed to me. He suggested I might have a secret admirer or a friend playing a prank. He took notes but didn't seem particularly concerned. I asked about the photographs. He said taking pictures from a public space wasn't illegal, even if the subject was unaware. He gave me a case number and said to call if anything else happened. I hung up feeling more alone than ever. The fifth package was different, smaller, lighter, but somehow more ominous than the others. Inside was a single key, old and tarnished, with a number stamped on the head, 4B my apartment number. But this wasn't my key. Mine was newer, brass-colored, with the building management company's logo etched into the metal. This key was old enough to be from before the building was renovated, back when it was something else entirely. I tried the key in my lock. It turned easily, too easily, as if the mechanism had been modified to accept it. I removed the key and stared at it, feeling the weight of its implications. Someone else had access to my apartment. Someone had always had access. I confronted the building manager the next morning. I found her in the basement, sorting through boxes of old files. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes that made my skin crawl. Not surprise, not confusion, but recognition, as if she had been expecting me. I showed her the key. She examined it carefully, turning it over in her fingers. She said it looked like one of the old master keys, probably left over from the previous management company. She said she would have the locks changed immediately. But she didn't. A week passed, then two. When I called to follow up, she said there had been delays with the locksmith, supply chain issues. She assured me it would be handled soon. I stopped sleeping well. Every creak of the building, every footstep in the hallway, every sound that didn't belong made me alert. I moved my bed away from the door and started sleeping with a knife under my pillow. I installed a door alarm, one of those cheap ones that screams when the contact is broken. The sixth package arrived while I was at work. I found it sitting on my kitchen counter when I came home. My door was still locked, the alarm was still set, but there it was. Someone had been in my apartment while I was gone. Inside was a recording device, one of those small digital ones that journalists use. The battery was dead, but when I charged it and pressed play, I heard my own voice. Conversations I had had in my apartment over the past month. Phone calls with my mother, talks with friends, private moments I thought no one else could hear. The recording quality was excellent, as if the device had been placed very close to where I spent most of my time. I searched my apartment systematically, moving furniture, checking behind picture frames, examining every corner. I found 3 more devices, small and black, barely larger than a coin. They were hidden in places I would never think to look, inside a lamp shade, under the rim of a table, behind the bathroom mirror. I gathered all the devices and confronted the building manager again. This time she wasn't in her office. The woman at the front desk said she was out of town on business and wouldn't be back for several days. I asked to speak to whoever was in charge. The woman made a phone call, spoke in hushed tones, then told me someone would contact me soon. That night I received a call from a man who identified himself as the property owner. His voice was calm, professional, almost therapeutic. He said he was aware of my concerns and would like to meet with me to discuss them. He suggested we meet at a restaurant downtown, somewhere public and comfortable. I agreed, but as soon as I hung up, I knew I had made a mistake. The restaurant was busy, filled with the sound of conversation and clinking silverware. He was already seated when I arrived, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked like someone's father, someone you would trust with your problems. He ordered coffee and asked about my concerns. I told him about the packages, the recordings, the photographs. He listened carefully, nodding at appropriate moments, making small sounds of sympathy and understanding. When I finished, he leaned forward slightly. He said he was sorry I had been disturbed by the research project. He said it was all completely legal, covered by the lease agreement I had signed. He said the data collected would be used to better understand tenant behavior and improve property management services. I asked why I hadn't been told directly. He said that would have compromised the integrity of the research. He said natural behavior was only possible when subjects were unaware they were being studied. I asked about the packages, the disturbing contents. He said those were psychological stimuli designed to measure stress responses and decision-making patterns. He said everything I had done, every choice I had made, had been carefully documented and analyzed. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were photographs, transcripts, behavioral analyses, charts showing my sleep patterns, my eating habits, my social interactions, detailed observations about my responses to each package, each intrusion, each violation of my privacy. He said the research was nearly complete. He He said I had been an excellent subject, very responsive to the stimuli. He said they had learned a great deal from my case. I asked if I could leave. He said of course, but he reminded me that I had signed a lease agreement. He said breaking the lease would result in significant financial penalties. He said it would be much simpler to stay and complete the research. I left the restaurant feeling hollow, as if something essential had been carved out of me. Back in my apartment, I sat in my kitchen and stared at the lease agreement. The words seemed different now, loaded with meanings I hadn't understood before. I thought about the other tenants, their strange behavior, their watchful eyes. I wondered how many of us were subjects, how many were researchers, how many even knew the difference. I thought about calling the police again, but what would I tell them? That I had signed a legal document agreeing to participate in research, that I was being studied in ways I didn't understand, that my privacy had been violated with my own written consent. The 7th package arrived that night. I didn't open it. Instead, I placed it on my kitchen counter next to the others, a growing collection of evidence that no one would ever believe. I haven't left my apartment since, not because I can't, but because I'm beginning to understand that leaving won't solve anything. The research isn't confined to this building, this lease, this moment. It's something larger, something that extends beyond the boundaries of my small life. Sometimes I catch myself performing for the cameras I know are there. I make coffee in the morning with deliberate movements, as if I'm demonstrating proper technique. I speak aloud when I'm alone, narrating my thoughts and feelings for the microphones I haven't found yet. I'm not sure anymore where the research ends and I begin, whether my thoughts are my own or responses to stimuli I can't perceive, whether this story I'm telling is true or just another data point in someone else's study. The packages keep coming. I've stopped opening them, but I can feel their presence, their weight, their purpose. They sit on my counter like accusations, like questions I'm not ready to answer. I understand now that I signed more than a lease agreement. I signed away my right to privacy, to autonomy, to the simple comfort of knowing when I'm being watched. I signed away my ability to trust my own perceptions, my own memories, my own story. But maybe that was always the point. Maybe the real research was never about my behavior, but about how long someone can live with the knowledge that their life isn't their own. How long they can function while knowing they're being studied, measured, cataloged like a specimen in a jar. I think I'm beginning to understand the answer. Crime 7, a friend sent me a link to a video, said it looked just like me. I clicked. The person in the video had my face, voice, even the same scar above the lip, but it wasn't me. I never filmed it. The channel had dozens more, each one darker than the last, staged confessions, threats, things I never did. The comments were brutal. My job found them, so did the police. I tried taking them down, but they just keep uploading more. Whoever's behind this isn't just impersonating me. They're replacing me one video at a time. The first thing I noticed wasn't the face staring back at me from the screen. It was the way my own coffee mug trembled in my hands as the video played. The person speaking wore my blue sweater, the one with the small tear near the shoulder. They sat in what looked like my living room, but the lighting was wrong, too harsh, too deliberate. I watched myself confess to stealing from my former workplace. My voice, my mannerisms, even the way I touched my nose when lying, except I'd never stolen anything. The confession felt rehearsed yet intimate, like someone had studied my soul and decided to sell it back to me. The channel username was simple, Truth Teller 847. Beneath the first video, comments poured in like digital rain. People I'd never met called me pathetic, disgusting. They tagged my employer, shared screenshots, dissected every word I supposedly spoke. The smell of burnt coffee filled my apartment as I scrolled through 43 videos, each featuring my face saying things I'd never said. My supervisor called before I finished watching the third video. Her voice carried that careful distance people use when they've already made their decision. She mentioned the company's reputation, social media policies, the need for immediate action. I tried explaining, but my own voice coming through the phone sounded hollow compared to the confident confessions still playing on my laptop screen. The detective assigned to my case had tired eyes and fingers stained with ink. She took notes while I explained about deep fakes, artificial intelligence, digital manipulation. Her pen stopped moving when I mentioned the videos kept appearing faster than I could report them. New ones uploaded daily, sometimes hourly, each one more personal than the last. I started recognizing details only someone close to me would know. The way I organized my bookshelf, the specific angle of family photos on my desk, my childhood nickname spoken with perfect inflection. The videos weren't just using my appearance anymore. They were excavating my life piece by piece, transforming intimate knowledge into public performance. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Former colleagues asking if the confessions were real. Neighbors wondering about the noise complaints video where I supposedly admitted to disturbing the peace nightly. My mother called, crying, asking about the video where I claimed to hate my family. The technology behind the videos was sophisticated, seamless. My face moved naturally, expressions matching the emotional weight of each confession. But something felt wrong beyond the obvious violation. The person creating these new things no stranger should know. They understood my fears, my habits, the specific ways I moved through the world. I hired a digital forensics expert who spoke in acronyms and showed me code I couldn't understand. She traced IP addresses that led nowhere, analyzed metadata that had been scrubbed clean. The videos were uploaded from different locations, using various devices, but always with the same meticulous attention to detail that made them believable. Sleep became impossible. Every creak in my apartment sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked like someone watching. I started leaving lights on, checking locks multiple times, wondering if the person behind this was someone I knew. Someone who had been inside my home, studied my movements, learned my voice patterns through intimate observation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A librarian called about a book I'd supposedly checked out, according to a video confession about vandalizing public property. I'd never been to that library, but someone had used my identification to access their system. The same identification that had been photographed and uploaded as evidence in one of the confessions. The library security footage showed someone wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, but their height and build matched mine exactly. They moved like me, gestured like me, even scratched their arm in the same absent way I did when nervous. Watching the footage felt like staring at a ghost of myself, performing actions I couldn't remember taking. I started mapping the confessions chronologically, looking for patterns. The early videos focused on minor transgressions, building credibility through admissions of small lies and petty mistakes. Later ones escalated to more serious claims, fraud, harassment, threats against public figures. Each video built on the last, creating a narrative of escalating antisocial behavior. The detective called with updates that weren't really updates. The investigation had stalled. The videos were too sophisticated for local resources, and federal agencies had bigger priorities. She suggested I consider changing my name, moving somewhere new, starting over. Her voice carried the weariness of someone who'd seen too many cases disappear into digital limbo. But I couldn't let go. Someone was systematically destroying my life, and they weren't finished. The videos were getting more personal, more invasive. Recent uploads included confessions about private conversations, intimate details about relationships, fears I'd never shared with anyone. The violation went beyond identity theft. Someone was hollowing out my existence and filling it with their version of who I should be. Late one evening, while reviewing the latest batch of confessions, I noticed something subtle in the reflection on my laptop screen in one of the videos. A figure moving behind the camera just for a moment, too brief to identify but familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. The way they moved, the timing of their presence, suggested someone comfortable in that space, someone who belonged there. I realized the truth had been staring at me from the beginning. The intimate knowledge, the perfect mimicry, the access to personal details. The person creating these videos wasn't a stranger studying me from afar. They were someone close enough to learn my patterns, my voice, my fears. Someone who could watch me without suspicion, document my life without detection. The final video uploaded while I was writing this account. In it, I confessed to fabricating the entire deepfake story. I claim the videos are real, that I created the impersonation narrative to avoid consequences for my actions. My digital self explains how I manipulated evidence, lied to investigators, deceived everyone who tried to help me. The comments section exploded with vindication from people who never believed my story. The detective stopped returning my calls. My few remaining supporters began questioning their support. The person behind this had achieved something more elegant than simple impersonation. They'd created a scenario where the truth and lies became indistinguishable, where my attempts to defend myself only provided more evidence of my supposed deception. I still don't know who's doing this to me, but I know they're not finished. Each day brings new videos, new confessions, new ways of reshaping my identity into something I don't recognize. The person I used to be is disappearing, replaced by this digital version that seems more real to the world than I am. Sometimes I wonder if they're right, if the confessions contain truths I've been hiding from myself. If the person staring back at me from those videos is who I really am, and the life I remember is the real fabrication. The line between victim and perpetrator blurs when your own face becomes evidence against you. The videos keep coming, and somewhere someone is watching me write these words, probably already planning how to turn this moment into another confession, another piece of evidence in a case that may never end. Crime 8, on a hike through the backwoods behind my house, I heard rustling up ahead, then a voice mine calling for help, same tone, same inflection, but I hadn't spoken. I called back, silence, then footsteps, slow, deliberate. I turned around and saw movement between the trees, a shape, my shape, standing still, head tilted, watching me. I ran home and locked everything. Later that night I heard it again, my own voice, not outside, inside, whispering the same sentence on repeat, let me in. That was 3 months ago. What I thought was a psychological breakdown turned out to be something far more disturbing, something real, something that happened to someone else first. I started researching after finding a torn piece of paper stuck to my back door. Handwriting I didn't recognize, but the words were mine. The voice gets stronger when you listen. I called the local library, asked about missing persons reports. The librarian's voice dropped to a whisper when I described what I'd experienced. She told me about the recordings. The basement archives held boxes of evidence from unsolved cases. Audio files transferred to digital, forgotten by everyone except the night janitor who'd been listening to them for years. He agreed to meet me behind the building, hands shaking as he handed me a flash drive. The first recording made my blood freeze. An emergency call, the voice pleading for help, my voice. Exact cadence, same nervous laugh I make when I'm scared, but the timestamp showed it was made 2 years before I moved here, before I'd ever set foot in these woods. The caller claimed someone was impersonating them, using their voice to lure people into the forest. The dispatcher treated it like a prank call. 3 days later, they found the caller's car abandoned at the trailhead. No body, no trace. I played the recording again. In the background, barely audible, I could hear rustling leaves. The same sound I'd heard that day, but there was something else. Breathing that didn't match the caller's rhythm. Someone else was there, listening, learning. The janitor pulled out newspaper clippings from the same box. 7 missing persons over 5 years. All had reported hearing their own voices in the woods before they disappeared. All had called for help. None had been taken seriously. I drove to the trail where the first car was found. The parking area felt familiar, though I'd never been there before. Scuff marks on the asphalt led toward the tree line. I followed them, recording everything on my phone. 20 feet into the woods, I found something that made me understand. A small clearing with equipment I recognized from my old job in radio broadcasting. Professional-grade recording devices, speakers, microphones, all connected to a laptop running voice analysis software, the kind used to replicate speech patterns. But the equipment was old, weathered. It had been here for years. I checked the laptop's files, hundreds of audio samples, conversations recorded from hiking trails, phone calls intercepted somehow, casual talks between friends, all organized by voice type, pitch, accent. My voice was there too, in a folder labeled with yesterday's date. The recordings went back to when I first moved here. Every conversation I'd had while walking these trails, every phone call I'd made in my backyard. Someone had been collecting my voice piece by piece, learning to become me. I heard footsteps behind me. My own voice called out, "Don't turn around." I turned anyway, nothing there, but the equipment was powering down, speakers going silent one by one. Someone had been here moments before, someone who knew I was coming. That night I found a note slipped under my door. My handwriting, but I hadn't written it. The others tried to warn people too. No one believed them either. I called the detective handling the missing persons cases, described what I'd found. He listened patiently, then asked me to come in for questioning. His tone was different, suspicious, like I'd just confessed to something. At the station, he played a recording for me, a 911 call made the night before. My voice reporting that I'd found evidence of the missing hikers, but I hadn't made that call. I was home, doors locked, phone on silent. The detective leaned forward, asked me where I'd really been, why my voice was on their systems making false reports, whether I knew that interfering with an investigation was a felony. I tried to explain about the equipment, the recordings, the voice impersonation technology. He nodded, taking notes. Then he played another file. My voice again, calling in bomb threats to local schools, dates spanning months, times when I could prove I was elsewhere, but voice analysis confirmed it was me speaking. I realized what was happening. Someone hadn't just been stealing my voice to lure victims. They'd been using it to make me the suspect. The detective let me leave, but I saw the way he watched me go, like he was memorizing my face for a lineup. I went back to the woods one last time. The equipment was gone. The clearing looked untouched, like no one had ever been there. But in the soft dirt I found fresh footprints, my shoe size, my tread pattern. Someone had been walking in my boots, leaving my trail everywhere evidence might matter. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking for me. I'm already you." That was a week ago. Since then, neighbors have been giving me strange looks. The mail carrier won't make eye contact. Yesterday, my own mother called, asking why I'd left such an angry voicemail on her machine. I never called her. I'm recording this now because I know what's coming. More calls will be made in my voice. More evidence will point to me. When they find this recording, they'll hear my confession to crimes I didn't commit, spoken in a voice that proves I did. The person who took those hikers is still out there, still using voices that don't belong to them, still making people disappear. But now everyone will think it was me. I keep wondering if someone can steal your voice perfectly, if they can make everyone believe you said things you never said, did things you never did, then who were you to begin with? Last night I heard my voice again, not outside this time, coming from my own mouth, saying words I wasn't thinking, words I didn't want to say, let me in. I think they already have. Crime 9, I travel a lot for work, and this motel wasn't anything special. Beige walls, flickering lights, broken vending machine. But behind a loose panel under the sink, I found a small metal door. Inside, photographs, bones, small ones, and a notebook full of coordinates and dates. No explanations, just one phrase scribbled on the inside of the wall in red marker. Do not speak of what you saw. I left in the middle of the night, but someone followed me home. And last week, I found the same red writing on my bathroom mirror. The photographs were what haunted me first, not because of what they showed, but because of what they didn't show. Children's faces, but only partial ones. A hand here, a smile there, eyes that seemed to be looking directly at whoever held the camera. The paper felt old between my fingers, thick and glossy like the kind photographers used decades ago. Each image had a number written on the back in the same red ink I'd seen on the wall. I should have called someone immediately. I should have left those bones where I found them. Instead, I sat on that sagging motel bed, turning each photograph over in my hands, feeling the weight of those small bones through the plastic bag I'd placed them in. They were too small to be human, I told myself, had to be from animals, but the notebook told a different story. The coordinates led to places I recognized from my travels. That rest stop where I'd bought coffee just 3 states back. The diner where the waitress had stared at me too long. The parking lot where I'd noticed a van with tinted windows following me for several miles before disappearing. Each location was paired with a date, and next to each date, a single letter. Sometimes an R, sometimes a C, sometimes an X. The handwriting was meticulous, almost childlike in its precision. Someone had spent considerable effort documenting these locations, these dates, these letters that meant something to them but nothing to me. The pages smelled faintly of cigarettes and something else I couldn't identify, something medicinal, almost sweet. When I finally left that room, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I'd taken the notebook with me, telling myself I'd turn it over to the authorities once I figured out what it meant. The bones I'd left behind, but the photographs came with me too. I convinced myself they were evidence, that someone needed to see them, that leaving them there would be worse than taking them. The drive home took longer than usual. I kept checking my rearview mirror, convinced I was seeing the same headlights behind me mile after mile. When I stopped for gas, I lingered inside the station, pretending to browse snacks while watching through the window. The van parked at the far end of the lot had tinted windows, just like the one from the notebook's coordinates. At home, I spread everything across my kitchen table. The photographs formed patterns I hadn't noticed in that dim motel room. Taken in sequence, they seemed to show the same children in different locations. A girl with curly hair appeared in 7 different images. A boy with a distinctive birthmark on his wrist showed up in 5. The backgrounds changed, but the children remained constant, their expressions growing more distant in each successive photo. The notebook revealed its own patterns. The coordinates weren't random. They formed a rough circle, with my hometown sitting almost exactly in the center. Each marked location was a place where someone might stop during a long drive. Rest areas, diners, motels like the one where I'd found this collection. The dates went back several years, but they'd been growing more frequent recently. The most recent entry was dated just 2 days before I'd arrived at that motel. I researched each coordinate online, cross-referencing them with missing person reports, news stories, anything that might explain what I'd found. The girl with curly hair matched the description of a child who disappeared from a mall parking lot 8 months ago. The boy with the birthmark looked similar to another child who'd vanished from a campground the previous summer. Similar, but not identical. The photographs were too unclear to be certain. Sleep became impossible. Every sound outside my house made me reach for the notebook, as if holding it might provide some protection or explanation. The red writing on my bathroom mirror had appeared while I was at work, and I'd found no signs of forced entry. Someone had been in my house, had access to my private space, had wanted me to know they could reach me whenever they chose. The handwriting on the mirror matched the notebook perfectly. The same careful strokes, the same red ink that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Below the warning about not speaking, someone had added a phone number. When I called it, the voice that answered was calm, almost pleasant. "You found something that doesn't belong to you," the voice said without waiting for me to speak. "I found something that belongs to the police." "No," the voice continued as if I hadn't spoken. "You found something that belongs to us, and we know where you live, where you work, where you stop for coffee every morning on your way to the office." The line went dead, but the message was clear. I was being watched, had been watched long before I discovered that hidden compartment. The notebook, the photographs, even my presence at that specific motel hadn't been coincidental. Someone had wanted me to find those things, had arranged for me to be there at exactly the right moment to discover their collection. I started noticing details I'd previously overlooked. The way certain people at the coffee shop seemed to recognize me before I'd ever seen them. The van with tinted windows that appeared in different parking lots around town, always far enough away to seem innocent but close enough for me to notice. The phone calls that would end the moment I answered, leaving only the sound of breathing and distant traffic. The photographs began to change, not physically, but in my perception of them. What I'd initially seen as evidence of crimes became something more ambiguous. The children's expressions weren't frightened exactly. They seemed almost cooperative, as if they understood something I didn't. The backgrounds, which I'd thought showed different locations, might have been the same place photographed from different angles. I returned to that motel, telling myself I needed to retrieve the bones I'd left behind. The room was exactly as I'd left it, except for one detail. The hidden compartment was empty, cleaned so thoroughly it looked as if it had never contained anything at all. The red writing on the wall had been painted over with fresh beige paint that was still slightly damp to the touch. The desk clerk, a thin man with nervous eyes, claimed no knowledge of my previous stay. According to his records, the room had been unoccupied for weeks. When I described finding the compartment, he looked genuinely confused, as if I were describing something impossible. He showed me the room's maintenance records, all indicating routine cleaning and minor repairs, nothing about hidden compartments or mysterious contents. But in the parking lot, I found the same van with tinted windows. It sat in the exact spot where I'd parked during my original stay, as if someone had carefully positioned it to mirror my previous visit. This time I approached it directly, determined to confront whoever was orchestrating this elaborate game. The windows were too dark to see through, but I could hear the faint sound of a radio playing classical music. When I knocked on the driver's side window, it rolled down slowly, revealing an empty driver's seat. The radio continued playing, but there was no one inside. On the passenger seat sat a manila envelope with my name written in that familiar red ink. Inside the envelope were copies of the photographs I'd taken from the motel room, but these copies included additional images I'd never seen before. The new photographs showed me, not just from my recent visits to the motel, but from throughout my travels. Me at rest stops, me at diners, me at gas stations, always unaware of being photographed. The images went back months, possibly years, documenting my movements with the same methodical precision I'd seen in the original notebook. At the bottom of the envelope was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. You were always part of the collection. The only question now is whether you'll continue to cooperate voluntarily or if other arrangements will need to be made. I drive more carefully now, checking my mirrors constantly, varying my routes, staying in different motels than the ones I would have chosen before. But the feeling of being watched never leaves. Sometimes I think I see familiar faces in truck stop diners, people who seem to know me even though I'm certain we've never met. Sometimes I find small objects in my motel rooms that weren't there when I checked in. A pen with red ink, a photograph of a child I don't recognize. A key that doesn't fit any lock I can find. The notebook remains on my kitchen table, but new entries appear in it regularly, written in handwriting that's slowly becoming more similar to my own. The coordinates now include places I haven't been yet, dates in the future, letters whose meaning continues to elude me. I tell myself I'm not writing these entries, that someone else has access to my house, my belongings, my life. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between sleeping and waking, I remember holding that red pen, remember the satisfaction of making those precise marks on the page. I remember the children's faces from the photographs, how cooperative they seemed, how willing to be part of something larger than themselves. The truth is becoming harder to distinguish from the fiction I've built around it. Maybe I was never just a traveler who stumbled upon someone else's secret. Maybe the collection was always mine, and the discovery was simply the moment I finally acknowledged what I'd been doing all along. Maybe those bones weren't as small as I remembered, and those photographs showed exactly what I thought they showed, and that red writing on my bathroom mirror was in my own handwriting after all. I still travel for work, but now I pay closer attention to the places I stop, the people I encounter, the opportunities that present themselves. And sometimes, when I see a child alone in a parking lot or walking along a remote road, I feel that same careful attention to detail that made those notebook entries so precise, so methodical, so perfectly organized. The van with tinted windows continues to follow me, but I'm no longer certain whether it's pursuing me or whether I'm leading it to exactly where it needs to go. Story 10. In the heart of the town stood the old library, its fate sealed by the impending threat of demolition. The diligent workers toiled tirelessly, nearing the completion of their task, when a serendipitous stumble led one of them to a hidden latch concealed within a dusty bookshelf. With a gentle click, the ancient case swung open, unveiling a clandestine passage that beckoned towards a secret chamber shrouded in mystery. The air within was heavy with the weight of time, untouched by human hands for decades. Within the hidden room, devoid of furniture save for a solitary chair bolted to the floor, a sense of foreboding lingered in the shadows. Adorning the walls were haunting scratches, a chilling repetition of the phrase, "I am still here." The construction foreman, sensing the eerie aura that permeated the space, swiftly alerted the authorities, setting in motion a chain of events that would unravel a tale as dark as the hidden chamber itself. Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator with 2 decades of experience, stood at the threshold of the hidden room, his flashlight piercing the darkness and casting an ethereal glow upon the unsettling message etched into the walls. "Secure the scene," Walsh commanded, his voice resonating in the confined confines of the chamber. "No one disturbs a thing until the forensics team arrives." The history of the building whispered tales of the past, weaving a narrative of intrigue and tragedy. Once owned by the esteemed Harrington family, the library bore witness to the enigmatic disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca. Vanishing without a trace during her final year of college, Rebecca's absence left a void that no amount of searching or speculation could fill. Her abandoned car, discovered near the edge of the woods, stood as the only tangible clue to her mysterious vanishing. As forensic experts meticulously combed through the hidden room, they unearthed traces of hair and fibers embedded in the aged leather of the restraining chair. The walls, scarred by desperate marks, harbored microscopic hints of blood and skin cells, hinting at a grim struggle that had taken place within those walls. Walsh, driven by a relentless determination to uncover the truth, delved into the murky depths of the Harrington family history. The timing of the library's donation to the public, a mere few weeks following Rebecca's disappearance, raised suspicions that could not be ignored. Further scrutiny revealed a troubling connection. The very contractor responsible for the installation of the bookshelf had ties to Maxwell Harrington, Rebecca's uncle and the patriarch of the family. As the investigation progressed, a chilling revelation emerged. The DNA recovered from the hidden room matched that of Rebecca's, linking her to the harrowing chamber where she had been held captive. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, painting a grim portrait of betrayal and deceit. A search of the Harrington estate yielded a damning discovery: a leather-bound journal secreted within a hidden compartment of Maxwell's study. The journal chronicled a disturbing obsession with his niece, culminating in a final entry that bore the weight of unspeakable horrors. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Maxwell's facade crumbled, revealing the depths of his depravity. In a chilling confession, he recounted the tragic events that had led to Rebecca's demise, a tale of greed and treachery that had lain buried for far too long. Beneath the floorboards of the hidden room, the truth lay entombed, waiting to be unearthed. As Rebecca's skeletal remains were brought to light, justice, long overdue, was meted out to the perpetrator of her untimely end. The Harrington family, haunted by the specter of their past, bore witness to the reckoning that had come to pass. In a solemn moment of closure, Rebecca's recovered bracelet served as a poignant reminder of a life extinguished too soon. The library, once slated for destruction, now stood as a monument to a life lost and a story untold. Flowers adorned its entrance, a symbol of remembrance for a soul unjustly silenced. And in the quiet stillness of the hidden chamber, where shadows whispered of secrets long kept, Rebecca's solemn message echoed through the ages, ensuring that her presence would never fade into obscurity. Story 11. The old apartment held its secrets within its aging walls. The pipes groaned like restless spirits. The floorboards whispered ancient tales with every step. But the new tenant, Sarah Coleman, sensed a presence beyond the usual quirks of the building. It wasn't just the usual settling noises. There was a rhythm, a purpose to the sounds that echoed down from above, from a realm that should have been vacant. Night after night, Sarah lay in bed, shrouded in darkness, as the steady footfalls traversed the ceiling above her, a haunting dance of unseen figures. She tried to dismiss the eerie sensations, drowning them out with the blaring television, cocooning herself in a world of noise to shield herself from the unsettling reality that lurked just beyond her reach. One fateful evening, driven by a surge of courage, Sarah tapped the ceiling with a broomstick, a feeble attempt to break the spell of the mysterious footsteps. To her astonishment, the sound ceased, swallowed by a sudden hush that enveloped her apartment. And then in the stillness of the night, a solitary knock reverberated from within the very confines of the ceiling, a chilling response that sent shivers down her spine. Sarah kept the unnerving incident to herself, convincing her mind that it was mere echoes of the building's structure, or perhaps a harmless creature seeking refuge in the attic. But as the nights wore on, the footsteps persisted, an ominous reminder of a presence she couldn't comprehend. It was Detective Morris who unraveled the enigma of Sarah's apartment, a place where shadows lingered and secrets thrived in hidden corners. During routine maintenance, a worker stumbled upon a concealed crawlspace behind a section of drywall outside Sarah's unit, a clandestine realm that defied the known blueprint of the building. Within the hidden passage, a chilling discovery awaited a makeshift living space adorned with remnants of a clandestine observer. Food wrappers, water bottles, a tattered blanket, and a weathered notebook that chronicled Sarah's every move with unsettling precision. The revelations sent a tremor through the building, awakening a dormant fear that lurked in the shadows. Forensic experts delved into the clandestine world within the walls, unearthing a network of passages that intertwined with the very structure of the building, a sinister labyrinth with a single focal point: Sarah Coleman's sanctuary. As the investigation unfolded, a dark narrative emerged from the whispers of former tenants, their voices echoing tales of unease and unseen watchers. The walls held secrets that transcended time, whispering of a past stained with fear and unanswered questions. The truth unfurled like a sinister tapestry, weaving a tale of Martin Weaver, a vanished soul whose fate had been entwined with the silent watcher in the walls. DNA evidence linked Martin to the hidden lair, a connection that illuminated a path to the elusive figure known as Edward Mercer. Edward's shadowy existence came to light, a phantom who had traversed the realm of apartment buildings with a chilling purpose. His meticulous record-keeping and silent vigil spoke of a mind consumed by a twisted obsession, a predator hidden in plain sight. In a secluded cabin, the echoes of the past reverberated through haunting images and cryptic notes, a shrine to the unsuspecting souls who had crossed paths with Edward's dark designs. The cabin bore witness to unspeakable horrors, a testament to the depths of human depravity that lurked beneath the veneer of normalcy. As the manhunt for Edward intensified, a sense of unease settled over Detective Morris, a lingering doubt that whispered of shadows that lingered just out of sight. The hunt for the elusive figure led to dead ends and unanswered questions, a mystery that refused to yield its final secrets. And in the stillness of the night, as the world slumbered in blissful ignorance, Detective Morris found himself haunted by the memory of Sarah's empty apartment, a void that echoed with the phantom footsteps of a presence that had vanished without a trace. The tale of Sarah Coleman and the enigmatic Edward Mercer became a cautionary whisper that lingered in the corridors of apartment buildings across the land, a reminder that the walls held secrets that defied the light of day. And as the night stretched its tendrils over the world, the echo of footsteps in the darkness resonated with a chilling truth: who else might be listening, waiting in the shadows just beyond our sight. Story 12. The apartment lay silent and empty for months, its walls echoing with untold stories and forgotten whispers. When the new tenants crossed the threshold, they carried with them a sense of anticipation, tempered by the mundane expectation of dust and old furniture left behind. Yet one door stood defiantly closed, its secrets concealed behind a stubborn lock. It was a closet, its keyhole a silent guardian of mysteries locked away. With a determined push, the landlord broke the seal, revealing not just coats or discarded items, but a chilling revelation. The walls bore witness to a silent struggle, etched with deep, uneven scratches that told a tale of desperation and confinement. In the corner, a relic of the past lay dormant, an old flip phone, its screen aglow with a single unread message, a spectral whisper from a bygone era. Detective Morgan Shaw, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for the unseen, felt a shiver run down her spine as she surveyed the scene before her. There was no blood spatter or obvious violence, yet the marks on the walls spoke volumes of a harrowing ordeal. Forensics now, she instructed her partner, Officer Reed, whose camera clicked in a rhythm of solemn documentation. As they delved deeper into the enigma, the pieces began to fall into place, revealing a haunting narrative. The message on the forgotten phone bore a weight of accusation, its words simple yet laden with ominous implications. "I know what you did." The landlord, a man of nervous disposition and evasive glances, revealed sparse details about the previous tenant, an enigmatic young woman named Emma Caldwell, who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind unpaid rent and a lingering sense of unease. Forensic analysis uncovered a chilling truth within the scratches on the walls, traces of blood, most belonging to Emma, but two distinct DNA samples sending ripples of disbelief through the investigation. One led to an unidentified individual, a ghost in the genetic database. The other matched a man believed to have perished years before in a tragic accident, Derek Mercer, a name that stirred echoes of a past best left undisturbed. As Shaw and Reed delved further into the labyrinth of secrets, Emma's life unfurled like a tapestry of shadows and whispers. Her apartment stood frozen in time, a snapshot of interrupted existence, unopened mail, a forgotten coffee mug, a bed meticulously made, all speaking of a life abruptly halted. The puzzle deepened with each revelation, a mysterious boyfriend shrouded in secrecy, a sudden cessation of calls to her sister, and a barrage of unknown numbers haunting her phone log. Surveillance footage painted a cryptic tableau, a shadowy figure trailing Emma, a silent sentinel in the night. The key to the mystery lay in the fingerprints left behind, a spectral imprint of a man long thought dead. Derek Mercer's twisted game of deception and control unraveled as the pieces fell into place, linking Emma's fate to another missing soul, Lynette Porter, a woman lost to the shadows years before. The tendrils of Mercer's malevolence stretched far and wide, ensnaring unsuspecting victims in a web of darkness and despair. Behind the facade of normalcy lay a realm of unspeakable horrors, where innocence was a fleeting illusion and safety a distant dream. The final act of justice unfolded as Mercer's carefully constructed facade crumbled, revealing a heart as cold as the shadows he dwelled in. His capture marked the end of a reign of terror, but the scars he left behind ran deep, etched into the souls of those who had crossed his path. As the gavel fell and the sentence was pronounced, a sense of closure descended upon the courtroom. Mercer's smile, a ghostly echo of defiance, faded into the shadows as the weight of his crimes bore down upon him. In the aftermath, as the world sought to heal from the wounds inflicted by a monster in human guise, Detective Shaw kept a memento, a fragment of the closet door, a silent witness to the horrors that lay hidden behind closed doors. In its silent vigil, it whispered a solemn reminder that even in the darkest of places, there lingers a glimmer of hope, a beacon of light to guide the lost souls back to the sunlit shores of redemption. Story 13. The motel stood there, a relic of the past, a place where transient souls sought refuge for a fleeting night. The receptionist handed her the key with a cryptic glance. Just avoid that last door on your left, his words barely audible. Her curiosity sparked a flicker in the darkness of the night. As she traversed the shadowy corridor, she halted before the ominous door. The handle chilled her fingertips, sending a shiver down her spine. To the naked eye, the door appeared no different from its companions, until she leaned in, pressing her ear against its weathered surface. From within, a faint, haunting breath whispered. Detective Morgan Reed awoke with a start, entering the room marked by yellow tape, a boundary between the ordinary world and the macabre scene that lay inside. The air carried a metallic tang, a familiar scent that signaled tragedy. Blood had seeped into the carpet, painting dark patterns upon the floor. Amidst the chaos, a young woman lay motionless, her golden locks splayed like a halo, her vacant gaze fixed upon the ceiling, frozen in eternal surprise or fear. Reed knelt beside the lifeless form, mindful not to disturb the evidence that spoke of the violence that had unfolded. The forensic expert spoke clinically. Third one this season, same modus operandi. Reed nodded solemnly. The victim was adorned in finery, a stark contrast to the dreary motel setting. A designer purse lay open, untouched, a silent witness to a crime driven by motives beyond mere theft. The motel manager lingered, an air of dread enveloping him. She arrived alone, paid in cash. I never imagined. His voice faltered, grief etched upon his features. The maid discovered her fate during routine cleaning. Reed surveyed the room, noting the absence of forced entry, the lack of defensive wounds. The victim had either welcomed her assailant willingly or recognized them from a past encounter. Back at the precinct, Reed pieced together the puzzle on the board, connecting the dots of three similar tragedies in nondescript motels. Speculations ran rampant, whispers of a predator haunting the shadows of the community. The autopsy report is in, Detective Hayes announced, dropping a file on Reed's desk. Death by manual strangulation, no DNA evidence, no signs of sexual assault. Reed's brow furrowed. This was not the work of a random predator. This was personal, intimate. Days melded into nights as the investigation deepened. Surveillance footage yielded no breakthroughs. The victim, identified as Elaine Werner, defied the profile of a reckless individual. Her friends painted a picture of a meticulous planner, a woman unlikely to choose such a place willingly. A breakthrough emerged during Reed's conversation with Werner's sister. Trembling hands clutched a coffee cup as revelations spilled forth. She mentioned a man from work, secretive, complicated. I think he was married. Reed leaned in. Did she mention a name? Just C, that's all. The focus shifted to Werner's workplace, where colleagues described her as reserved, dedicated. A hidden business card led Reed to Charles Emerson, a high-ranking executive. Emerson exuded charm and innocence, but a flicker in his gaze betrayed a deeper truth. Forensic evidence tied Emerson to the crime, his composed facade crumbling under scrutiny. Confessions of an affair turned sinister, threats of exposure leading to a deadly outcome. The room next to the last door on the left held chilling secrets. Hidden cameras capturing intimate moments turned fatal. In the courtroom, families sought closure as justice unfolded before their eyes. Emerson's stoic demeanor betrayed no remorse, his mask of indifference unyielding. Life without parole was his sentence, a fitting end for a man devoid of empathy. As Reed locked eyes with Emerson one last time, she saw not a man, but a void where compassion should have resided. The door on the left case captured the public's fascination, a glimpse into the darkness that lurked behind closed doors. The keys, silent witnesses to unspeakable horrors, now lay dormant in the evidence locker. Reed, haunted by the echoes of past tragedies, found herself counting doors in hotel corridors, pondering the mysteries that lay beyond. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again, their secrets forever etched in the annals of darkness. Story 14. She always avoided venturing into the attic, but when a fierce storm caused a leak in the roof, she had no other option. The attic was a realm of forgotten treasures, cloaked in dust and veiled by cobwebs. Nestled in the shadows of the farthest corner was an ancient dollhouse, exquisitely crafted with eerie precision, its miniature furnishings meticulously arranged. Yet as she peered into its tiny rooms, a sense of unease gripped her. The figures within were not mere dolls, but miniature replicas, delicately carved by hand resemblances of her own kin. Each figurine was meticulously placed to mirror the exact positions of her family members downstairs, with one notable exception. The figure meant to represent her stood by the attic door. Her name was Rebecca Morgan, and as she traced her finger along the roof of the dollhouse, she felt the indentation where the tiny wooden figure stood. A shiver ran down her spine, distinct from the icy draft that whispered through the attic rafters. This dollhouse had no place in her life. This wasn't her childhood abode, but a temporary dwelling her family had recently inhabited. The discovery prompted Rebecca to make a frantic call to the authorities. Law enforcement officers soon arrived at the suburban residence to find a family in a state of distress, huddled in the living room, their reluctance to return upstairs palpable. Detective Sarah Harmon, the lead investigator, initially dismissed their fears as a prank or a product of adjusting to a new environment. However, it was the intricate detail of the dollhouse that caught her attention. Each miniature figure captured a distinct feature of the family members: the father's receding hairline, the teenage son's hoodie, even the small birthmark on the mother's hand. The investigation took a chilling turn when forensic teams uncovered fingerprints on the dollhouse that did not match any of the family members. Even more unsettling were the microscopic cameras concealed in the eyes of each figurine, all linked to a sophisticated recording system hidden beneath the dollhouse. Analysis of the Morgan family's movements revealed a disquieting pattern. The positions of the figures in the dollhouse mirrored not only the family's current evening, but also exact moments from different days, indicating a prolonged period of surveillance. We quickly realized this was not a mere case of stalking, Detective Harmon later reflected. The level of obsession displayed by the perpetrator surpassed anything documented in criminal psychology. The investigation led to the discovery of a concealed basement entrance behind a false pantry wall. Inside, evidence suggested that someone had been living there prior to the Morgan family's arrival. Food wrappers, water bottles, and a sleeping bag indicated a clandestine residency beneath the family's feet for weeks. The absence of forced entry puzzled investigators, as property records revealed the house had been vacant for nearly a year before the Morgans moved in. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had passed away within a short span, leaving their son to oversee the estate sale and rental of the property. Interviews with neighbors yielded scant information, except for one elderly woman who sporadically observed lights in the house during its vacancy. A breakthrough emerged through digital forensics, tracing the surveillance data to an external server with an IP address leading to a small apartment across town. Inside, the walls were adorned with photographs of the Morgan family and previous occupants, alongside journal entries detailing their daily routines with unsettling precision. The most harrowing revelation was a workshop brimming with partially constructed dollhouses, each representing a different residence in the vicinity. The apartment belonged to Martin Wells, the son of the deceased homeowners, whose financial struggles post-parental demise led him to maintain a covert existence in the house, all while collecting rent from unsuspecting tenants. The dollhouse served as his command center, elucidated the forensic psychologist assigned to the case. Each miniature figure symbolized the subject of his surveillance. Rebecca's figurine by the attic door wasn't a threat, it signified his acknowledgement of her discovery. During interrogation, Wells remained eerily composed as he outlined his rationale. They were living in my home, occupying my parents' space. I needed to ensure they respected it. His explanation for the positioned figurines was simple. I wanted them to know I was always watching. Psychological evaluations unveiled a convoluted narrative of possessive delusion. Wells, incapable of coping with the loss of his childhood residence, concocted an intricate system to exert control over it. The dollhouse became his medium for possessing both the property and its inhabitants. The Morgan family never set foot in that house again. Rebecca recounted that the most haunting moment was not the discovery of the dollhouse, but the realization it embodied. We were under surveillance, our lives scrutinized, manipulated like puppets. The true terror wasn't the dollhouse, it was knowing that to him, we were mere playthings. Wells faced numerous charges, including stalking, invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, and breaking and entering. The case prompted a reevaluation of real estate disclosure laws concerning property deaths and agents' obligations to ensure proper vacating procedures. During sentencing, the judge acknowledged the egregious violation the Morgan family endured. You didn't just intrude into their home, you shattered their sanctuary and autonomy. You observed their intimate moments and replicated them for your gratification. What unsettles criminologists the most is how long Wells could have operated unnoticed had Rebecca not unearthed the dollhouse. Analysis of his journals hinted at a prolonged pattern of clandestine residency in various homes, constructing dollhouses for each family under his watch. The Morgan family eventually relocated far from that tainted abode, yet Rebecca confessed in her victim impact statement that she still checks closets and crawl spaces habitually. She purged their new residence of all dollhouses and miniatures. Some days the sensation of being watched lingers, she confessed. I wonder if, somewhere out there, a miniature version of me is still being manipulated in a dollhouse I have yet to uncover. Story 15. The quaint coffee shop had become a sanctuary for him, a sanctuary of routine and solitude. For years, he would occupy the same table, order the same black coffee, and envelop himself in the comforting cloak of silence. The barista recognized his face, but his name remained a mystery to all who frequented the cozy establishment. Then, one fateful day, he failed to make his usual appearance. Concerned, the police ventured to his customary seat and stumbled upon a peculiar discovery, a wallet left behind. Within the wallet lay a driver's license bearing a photo, yet devoid of any identifying information. No name, no address, just an unsettling blank space where his identity should have resided. Detective Sarah Mercer found herself immersed in the enigma as she meticulously scrutinized the security footage. The mysterious man, now labeled as John Doe in the investigative records, appeared unremarkable on the screen. Average in height, nondescript in features, clad in a navy coat and toting a weathered leather messenger bag. His unassuming presence made his inexplicable disappearance all the more perplexing. "Play it again," Mercer instructed the tech specialist, her voice barely above a whisper. The footage replayed the sequence of events, John entering the bustling coffee shop during the morning rush, ordering his customary black coffee, and settling at the secluded corner table adorned with a lush plant. He engaged in the familiar ritual of writing in his notebook, occasionally pausing to gaze out the window while sipping his coffee. Then the pivotal moment unfolded. He left his wallet on the table, rose from his seat, and made his way towards the restroom corridor. Yet he never returned. He never emerged through any exit. He simply vanished into thin air. "Check the bathroom footage," Mercer urged. "That's the strange part," the specialist responded. "There's no record of him entering any restroom. We've scrutinized every angle, but it's as though he evaporated into the ether." Returning to the precinct, Mercer meticulously laid out the contents of the abandoned wallet on her desk. The driver's license photo bore a striking resemblance to their enigmatic subject, yet the personal details were conspicuously absent, replaced by vacant spaces. The credit cards bore no names, only strings of numbers unlinked to any known accounts. Neatly stacked cash, a receipt from the coffee shop dated 3 days prior, and a solitary business card void of any information except for a faintly printed phone number. Upon dialing the number, Mercer was met with silence on the other end, accompanied by the rustling of papers, a whisper of secrets drifting through the void. The barista, a witness to John Doe's silent presence over the years, could provide little insight. He seldom spoke, but his demeanor was always polite. There might have been a trace of an accent, but his voice was so hushed it eluded detection. "Did he ever engage in conversations or meet anyone here?" Mercer inquired. "Never, always alone, engrossed in writing within his notebook," the barista recalled, gesturing towards the cryptic tome left behind on the table. The notebook's pages were adorned with intricate patterns resembling coded messages or encrypted texts. Cryptographers grappled with deciphering its enigmatic contents, interspersed with architectural sketches depicting unfamiliar structures. Mercer dispatched officers to scour the neighborhood with John Doe's visage, yet no one could place a name to his face. No missing persons reports aligned with his description, and his fingerprints yielded no matches in any database. It was as though he existed solely within the confines of that coffee-scented haven. As Mercer delved deeper into the investigation, a peculiar anomaly caught her attention in the security footage. Each morning, upon John's entrance, a flicker momentarily distorted the time stamp on the camera. The specialist dismissed it as a glitch, but Mercer sensed a deeper significance. Returning to the coffee shop, she positioned herself at his table, her gaze drawn to the antique mirror suspended between the entrance and the restroom hallway, a mirror adorned with cryptic symbols akin to those etched within John's notebook. Interrogating the shop owner about the mirror, Mercer unraveled a fragment of the enigma. "It's been here longer than my tenure, an unwavering fixture within these walls, heavy as sin, requiring two to shift its weight. Has it ever been relocated for maintenance or renovations?" Mercer probed further. "Never in my time. Why the interest?" the owner inquired. Approaching the mirror, Mercer observed her reflection, noting a subtle distortion that lent her mirrored image an uncanny depth. Tentatively reaching out, she anticipated the chill of glass, but encountered an unexpected warmth emanating from its surface. The forensics team's subsequent examination unveiled a concealed compartment behind the mirror, harboring a trove of identical wallets, each housing a nameless driver's license and a leather-bound journal inscribed with entries spanning decades, mirroring the notebook's cryptic style left behind. The final entry bore a chilling proclamation: "The experiment must cease. They draw near. The window dwindles." Fingerprint analyses unveiled a peculiar revelation. All imprints within the hidden alcove matched those of John Doe. Carbon dating of the earliest wallet hinted at its antiquity, yet the unchanging countenance in the accompanying photo defied the passage of time. Entries within the journal alluded to experiments in temporal displacement and identity transference, interspersed with cryptic references to crossing back and window points. One passage resonated with Mercer: "The coffee shop stands as a nexus, a juncture where realities converge. The mirror serves as the gateway. When alignment is achieved, transit becomes plausible." As the inquiry progressed, peculiar occurrences unfurled within the coffee shop's vicinity. Patrons reported witnessing their reflections moving autonomously within the window panes, some claiming sightings of John Doe seated at his customary table, despite the absence captured by security cameras. The breakthrough materialized when an elderly woman, Margaret Keller, a former physicist with a clandestine background in government projects, contacted the precinct, shedding light on John Doe's obscured identity. "He was Daniel Weston," Keller elucidated, "a brilliant theoretical physicist who vanished during an experimental venture involving quantum mirror surfaces speculated to facilitate matter's traversal between parallel realities." Documentation unveiled Weston's presumed demise following a laboratory mishap, aligning with the earliest entry within the journal concealed behind the mirror. Keller expounded on Weston's convictions regarding multiple coexisting realities and theorized locations acting as conduits between these realms, thresholds permitting potential crossings. Armed with this revelation, Mercer revisited the coffee shop, unearthing a startling revelation: the edifice stood upon the grounds of the former research facility where Weston conducted his enigmatic studies. The shop had been erected atop the laboratory where he mysteriously vanished. The investigation reached its zenith when Mercer, poring over surveillance footage in the solitary hours of the night, discerned a hidden facet unnoticed in prior viewings. Reflected within the shattered mirror's remnants, she glimpsed John Doe Daniel Weston observing himself seated at the table. Two iterations of the same individual coexisting in a singular frame. Rushing to the coffee shop, Mercer discovered the mirror shattered, fragments strewn across the floor. Amidst the shards, a final note inscribed in the familiar hand conveyed: "The experiment concludes. The aperture seals shut. Do not pursue." The enigma of the Phantom Man endured as an unresolved enigma. The coffee shop shuttered its doors post-inquiry, the structure succumbing to eventual demolition. Weston's physical remains eluded discovery, while his journals and notebooks vanished from the evidence repository under mysterious circumstances. Mercer, haunted by the enigmatic saga, relinquished her badge not long after. Locals sporadically glimpsed her on the porch, fervently transcribing within a notebook akin to Weston's. Adorning her wall, a fragment of an antique mirror occasionally rippled, evoking a whisper of temporal mysteries when the world slumbered. Story 16. The tale began when the new homeowners, Daniel and Meredith Parker, moved into their historic Victorian manor. Nestled among ancient oak trees, the house exuded an aura of mystery with its weathered exterior concealing a modern interior. The couple was drawn to the property's vintage intercom system, a relic connecting all rooms, despite the real estate agent's uneasy demeanor during the sale. Late one night, as the old intercom crackled with static, curiosity got the best of Daniel. With a press of a button, a chilling whisper echoed through the speaker. "Why did you come back?" Startled, Daniel turned to his wife, only to hear her deny ever uttering those words. The intrigue deepened when a disturbing discovery was made behind a wall during a renovation project. Hidden in deteriorating plastic, a leather-bound journal belonging to a woman named Elena surfaced. Her elegant yet frantic handwriting revealed her fears of her husband Vincent's sinister intentions. The final entry, dated 30 years ago, hinted at a dark conclusion to Elena's story. Detective Sarah Reeves was called to investigate the mysterious circumstances. Daniel and Meredith recounted the eerie events that unfolded, leading the detective to uncover the tragic history of the previous owners, Vincent and Elena Blackwood. Vincent's calculated deception and ultimate confession of murder sent chills down everyone's spine. As forensic evidence confirmed Elena's fate, the truth of her untimely demise emerged from beneath the garden shed. Vincent's chilling admission of silencing his wife through the intercom system sent shivers down the spines of all involved. The house, once a silent witness, now spoke volumes of the past injustices that had long been buried. In a swift trial, Vincent Blackwood pleaded guilty, his decades-long facade crumbling under the weight of his crimes. The judge acknowledged the meticulous planning and deception that had tainted the house for years. Daniel and Meredith, unable to bear the weight of the house's dark past, bid farewell after a somber memorial for Elena, finally at peace. With the intercom system removed and the garden restored, the house seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as its secrets were laid to rest. The echoes of static and whispers during renovations echoed the lingering presence of Elena, a reminder of the house's dark history. Detective Reeves, closing the case file with a heavy heart, felt a sense of closure as justice was served. Driving past the house one last time, she couldn't help but slow down, listening for any whispers carried on the wind, a silent tribute to Elena's enduring presence in the house that finally answered back. Story 17. In the quiet of the night, a flicker danced across the baby monitor screen, a subtle disturbance in the usual feed. The mother, Rebecca, barely registered it at first, attributing it to mere interference. But then the audio crackled and a soft voice, barely audible, whispered, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A shiver ran down Rebecca's spine as her blood turned cold. Hastily she dashed to her son's room, heart racing in her chest, only to find an empty crib greeting her panicked gaze. The window remained shut, the door securely locked. The only anomaly in the room was a stuffed rabbit lying on the floor, its unyielding black eyes fixed on her in silent accusation. Rebecca's scream pierced the night, raw with terror and despair, echoing through the walls until her throat burned with the effort. The neighbors, disturbed by her cries, swiftly summoned emergency aid. When the authorities arrived, they discovered Rebecca huddled on the nursery floor, clutching the stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear. Her precious 4-month-old Samuel had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that threatened to consume her. The initial investigations yielded little solace. There were no signs of forced entry. The security system remained intact and activated throughout the night, and the recorded footage from the baby monitor showed only the eerie voice and static that had shattered Rebecca's fragile peace. How could an intruder infiltrate a locked home, snatch an innocent child, and vanish into the night without a trace, save for a haunting message and a displaced toy? Whispers began to circulate within the community, casting shadows of doubt and suspicion upon Rebecca. Her husband, Daniel, had been absent on business during the fateful night, their strained marriage strained further by the weight of Samuel's disappearance. Rebecca's own struggles with postpartum depression painted her as an easy target for scrutiny. The detective's keen eye noted her unnervingly composed demeanor, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing beneath the surface of a mother robbed of her child. Then a glimmer of hope emerged amidst the darkness. Forensic analysis uncovered microscopic fibers on the nursery windowsill, foreign to the household fabric, hinting at a sophisticated intruder skilled in the arts of stealth and infiltration. The focus shifted to the possibility of an external breach, supported by security footage capturing a mysterious figure lurking in the shadows of the night. A single footprint in the garden soil, imprinted by a specialized boot, hinted at a calculated trespasser with a hidden agenda. Daniel's return from his trip only deepened the mystery. The investigator's gaze fell upon his hands, marred by unusual calluses, a telltale sign of a newfound interest in rock climbing, an interest he conveniently failed to mention until prodded. Financial records painted a troubling picture, revealing a substantial life insurance policy taken out on Samuel, coupled with clandestine calls to an unknown number that ceased before the abduction. The case took a sinister turn when the truth unraveled like a sinister tapestry. Digital forensics unveiled a hacking of the baby monitor, a violation of privacy that led the investigators to a dark basement where Samuel was discovered under the care of a woman named Elaine. Her vacant eyes bore witness to a shattered past, intertwined with Daniel's in ways that defied comprehension. Elaine's connection to Daniel, his first wife scarred by loss, painted a macabre portrait of betrayal and deceit. As the trial unfolded, the chilling audio from the baby monitor echoed in the courtroom, revealing the whispers of deception and the damning cough of a man ensnared in his own web of lies. The jury's swift verdict delivered justice upon the guilty, condemning Daniel and Elaine to the full extent of the law for their crimes against innocence. Rebecca and Samuel sought solace in a new beginning, far from the shadows of the past that threatened to engulf them. The baby monitor, a silent sentinel of truth, remained a haunting reminder of the night that shattered their world. Samuel, untouched by the memories that haunted his mother, grew up in the embrace of a love reborn from the ashes of tragedy. Rebecca kept the stuffed rabbit, a silent witness to the darkness that lurked beyond the veil of innocence. Its glassy eyes held the secrets of a night when whispers carried through the darkness, revealing truths that shattered illusions and forged a bond between a mother and her lost child. The monitor never lied. It merely unveiled the hidden truths that lurked in the shadows, waiting to be brought into the light. Story 18. The dwelling had sat abandoned for countless years, a silent witness to the passage of time. Whispers in the neighborhood spoke of its haunting emptiness ever since the disappearance of a young woman named Elise. When the new occupants arrived, drawn by fate or chance, they were met with a peculiar discovery, the bedroom door sealed shut from within. With a creak and a groan, they forced the stubborn door open, unveiling a room frozen in time. The air within was thick with neglect, carrying the weight of forgotten memories. Yet amidst the layers of dust, an eerie sense of presence lingered, like a ghostly whisper brushing against their skin. The bed stood immaculately made, untouched by time's relentless march. The mirror gleamed, reflecting a distorted image of the past. And there on the desk, a solitary candle stood as a sentinel, its flame long extinguished, leaving behind a trail of wax tears frozen in time. But it was the sight of the notebook that sent shivers down their spines. Its pages, adorned with the ink of a lost soul, beckoned to be read. Detective Morgan delved into its depths, hands, tracing the meticulous handwriting of a woman long gone. Elise Winters, a name etched in mystery and sorrow, had poured her soul onto those pages, each word a testament to her vanishing. The final entry, written on that fateful night, bore a chilling confession of unseen eyes watching, of a lurking danger that Elise sensed but could not evade. The words spoke of a truth buried deep, a truth that begged to be unearthed from the shadows of the past. As the room whispered its secrets, the detective and forensic experts combed through the remnants of a life interrupted. Elise, a paralegal entangled in a web of deceit, had stumbled upon a truth too dangerous to ignore, a truth that led to her abrupt disappearance. The pieces of the puzzle slowly fell into place, revealing a sinister conspiracy woven into the fabric of a prestigious law firm. Numbers manipulated, lives endangered, and justice forsaken in the pursuit of power and profit. Hidden within the confines of the room, a key unveiled a trove of damning evidence, a trail of deceit that led to the doorstep of those who thought themselves untouchable. The truth, once concealed, now stood exposed, waiting to be judged by the unforgiving eyes of justice. Through twists and turns, the shadows of the past were brought to light. Vincent Harriman, a man of influence and malice, stood accused of a crime that transcended mere murder. His web of lies, meticulously constructed, crumbled in the face of truth's relentless gaze. The courtroom, a stage for justice long denied, bore witness to the reckoning of a man who thought himself beyond reproach. Elise's voice, silenced in death, echoed through the halls of justice, a testament to her unwavering resolve. And as the final verdict rang out, the house stood as a silent sentinel, its walls holding the echoes of a tragedy long forgotten. The truth, a fragile beacon in the darkness, illuminated the path to redemption for those lost in the shadows. The house, once a haven for secrets, now stood empty, a monument to the courage of a woman who dared to defy the shadows of injustice. And in the stillness of the night, a flicker of light danced in the upstairs window, a silent tribute to the spirit that refused to be silenced. In the end, justice prevailed, not in the confines of a courtroom, but in the hearts of those who refused to let Elise's memory fade into obscurity. The room she never truly left became a sanctuary of truth, a testament to the enduring power of a voice silenced but never forgotten. Story 19, The Realtor's Secret. The listing had made no mention of a basement. The blueprints offered no hint of its existence. Yet beneath the old carpet in the living room of the Mercer family's new suburban home, a hidden door lurked, its rusted handle a silent invitation. With effort, the family pried it open, revealing a staircase leading into darkness, where the air hung heavy with the scent of earth and mystery. Expecting a storage space, the Mercers were met with a singular chair beneath a swaying light bulb, casting eerie shadows on the wall, adorned with a series of photographs of them, taken within the confines of their own home. The house, a two-story relic with its faded siding and creaking floors, had drawn the Mercers in with promises of character and history. Little did they know the depths of history that lay hidden within its walls, waiting to intersect violently with their present. Detective Sarah Connors arrived at the property with her partner, the crime scene already cordoned off with fluttering yellow tape. Mrs. Mercer's frantic call had led them to the basement, a scene that demanded meticulous documentation before further exploration. The basement, no larger than a standard bedroom, held the eerie chair at its center, bathed in the harsh glow of the lone bulb above. but it was the rows of photographs, each depicting the Mercer family in their most private moments, that sent shivers down their spines. Investigations revealed a chilling lack of forced entry or theft. Privacy had been the only casualty, as the Mercers and previous families had unknowingly been under surveillance for years within their own home. As the investigation delved deeper, the house's dark past unraveled, with each previous owner holding a piece of the sinister puzzle. Blueprints altered, permits withdrawn, and inspection reports redacted, all pointing to a hidden truth buried within the walls. The breakthrough came when a shaken contractor, involved in the house's renovation years prior, denied the existence of the basement discovered by the Mercers. His disbelief mirrored the growing unease of the investigators. Digital forensics unveiled a trove of images and audio recordings, capturing the intimate lives of families who had resided in the house. A journal belonging to the original builder, Edward Kelvin, detailed his obsession with observing those who dwelled within his creation. The final entry foretold the arrival of the next family, sending chills down the spines of all involved. Fingerprint analysis confirmed Kelvin's presence within the hidden passages of the house, where he had lived undetected for years, a ghostly observer of his unwitting tenants. Kelvin's capture revealed a man detached from reality, believing himself a guardian rather than an intruder. The families to him were his subjects, existing only to be watched and documented. The trial exposed the extent of Kelvin's surveillance network, the house itself a tool for his voyeuristic tendencies. As the property was demolished and the ground filled, the families left behind carried with them a haunting realization the walls that once sheltered them had also concealed a silent, unseen presence, forever altering their sense of security. In quiet moments, they found themselves questioning the empty corners of their new homes, wondering if they were ever truly alone, or if the ghostly gaze of Edward Kelvin still lingered, hidden in the shadows of memory. Story 20. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded hues, capturing a birthday celebration from a distant past. Faces frozen in smiles, candles flickering innocently, nothing seemed amiss at first glance. Yet when the daughter inherited the box of forgotten memories, a chilling discovery awaited her. A shape lurked in the background of every photo, a mysterious figure standing just beyond the glow of the candles, half shrouded in shadow. He didn't belong to the family depicted in the snapshots. No one recalled his presence on that joyous occasion, and yet with each passing photo he drew closer. Sarah Winters stumbled upon the collection while sifting through her mother's attic after the funeral. A simple cardboard box labeled Memories revealed a trove of nostalgia, chronicling happier times. But what should have brought solace soon turned into the beginning of a haunting ordeal. In the initial photo, the figure was barely discernible, a dark silhouette lingering at the periphery during Sarah's 7th birthday party. In the subsequent snapshots, he crept closer, moving from the outskirts to the heart of the gathering, unnoticed by all but the camera's lens. Sarah, shaken to her core, reached out to her father, seeking answers to the enigma unfolding before her. "Dad, who is this man haunting our family photos?" she quivered over the phone. An eerie silence followed her question, broken only by a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "What man? There shouldn't be anyone there but us," her father finally replied, his voice tinged with unease. Detective Marcus Reed lent a sympathetic ear as Sarah laid out the unsettling evidence at the precinct. Outside, raindrops tapped against the windows, casting dancing shadows in the dimly lit room. The detective's experienced gaze traced the progression of the figure through each photo, a sense of intrigue building within him. "Nobody recognized him?" he inquired, his voice a blend of curiosity and skepticism. Sarah shook her head, arranging the photos in a chronological sequence. As the detective observed, a pattern emerged, a deliberate, chilling movement of the mysterious man edging closer to the unsuspecting children with each captured moment. Speculations arose, but concrete answers remained elusive. Facial recognition software faltered, unable to penetrate the intentional obscurity cloaking the figure. It seemed as though he knew the camera's gaze and eluded any attempts at identification. The investigation took a crucial turn when Sarah unearthed more incriminating photos from different family gatherings over the years. A computer specialist's meticulous enhancements revealed telling details: a scar, a ring, a faint reflection that hinted at the man's obscured identity. But the breakthrough came with the matching of dental records to a long-missing maintenance worker, Robert Keller. Keller's dark past unraveled a connection to unsolved child abductions that had plagued the region years ago. His presence at the birthday party was no mere coincidence, but a sinister thread linking tragedies across decades. As authorities delved deeper, disturbing evidence emerged, buried beneath the foundations of Keller's former residence. Remnants of lost innocence surfaced: a hair clip, a toy car, a bracelet, all belonging to children who had vanished without a trace. Sarah's own childhood memento, thought to be lost, resurfaced among the chilling artifacts. The pieces of a macabre puzzle fell into place, revealing the hidden horrors that had lurked beneath the facade of joyous family gatherings. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by the damning photos, Sarah grappled with the weight of the revelations. The detective's somber call confirmed a grim discovery: a missing child's remains identified near one of the vacation properties tied to Keller. The truth had come to light, but it brought closure tainted by sorrow. The final birthday photo held a haunting resonance. Amidst the warmth of the candlelit celebration, the figure lingered behind Sarah's younger self, a specter of malevolence unseen by those captured in the frame. His presence, once overlooked, now stood exposed in the harsh light of justice. As families found answers to long-standing mysteries, a chilling truth resonated: the dangers that lurk unseen in plain sight, moving through moments frozen in time, leaving behind only whispers of their sinister presence. The shadow in the family photos had emerged from the darkness, his legacy of terror finally unmasked, a phantom no longer hidden but laid bare in the harsh light of truth. Story 21. In the quiet stillness of the morning, a mysterious package landed on Sarah Miller's doorstep like a whisper in the wind. No return label, no tracking number, just a simple cardboard box adorned with a faint dewy sheen. It wasn't intended for her. The name on it was unfamiliar: a certain Daniel Whitaker. Logic told her to ignore it, to let it fade into the background of her daily routine. But curiosity, that persistent temptress, tugged at her thoughts until she couldn't resist. With delicate fingers, she peeled back the tape sealing the box, half expecting mundane contents within. Instead, nestled inside was a relic from a bygone era of VHS tape, accompanied by a solitary sticky note bearing a cryptic command: "Watch alone." The weight of the tape felt heavier than mere plastic in Sarah's hands, as if carrying the weight of secrets untold. Her gaze lingered on the worn edges, fingers tracing the imperfections ingrained in the casing. The handwritten note, bearing the indents of urgency, beckoned her into a realm of mystery. The world outside her doorstep carried on in its usual rhythm: the distant bark of a dog, the laughter of children, the drone of a lawnmower, but within her kitchen, a sense of unease settled. The name Daniel Whitaker held no significance in Sarah's world. Having resided in her home for years, she had never encountered such a name in her mailbox. The tape, however, whispered of intrigue, a tale waiting to be unraveled. Against the rational voice in her mind, Sarah succumbed to the allure and slid the tape into her long-forgotten VCR. Static danced on the screen before morphing into a dimly lit room, shadows playing in the corners. A man, Daniel Whitaker himself, sat before her, his weary countenance illuminated by a solitary lamp. His voice, tinged with both urgency and defiance, filled the room as he spoke of innocence tainted by circumstance, of a life upended by a crime he did not commit. As the tape unfolded its tale of deception and betrayal, Detective Eliza Ramirez found herself drawn into a web of lies and half-truths. The case of Catherine Walsh's murder, once seemingly straightforward, now bore the weight of dark revelations and hidden agendas. The appearance of multiple tapes, each carrying Whitaker's desperate plea, hinted at a conspiracy lurking beneath the surface. Whispers of a pharmaceutical giant, PharmaCorp, and a whistleblower silenced too soon added layers of complexity to the investigation. The truth, elusive and slippery, seemed to shimmer just beyond reach, obscured by a veil of deceit. Sarah Miller's world shifted when a second package arrived, laden with incriminating documents that unveiled the sinister truth behind Catherine Walsh's demise. As Ramirez delved deeper into the shadows cast by powerful entities, the pieces of the puzzle began to align, leading to a startling revelation. In a storage unit hidden from prying eyes, the key to unlocking the mystery lay dormant, a journal detailing the machinations of those who sought to manipulate justice for their gain. With unwavering determination, justice prevailed not through grand gestures, but through the quiet resolve of those who refused to turn a blind eye. As Daniel Whitaker emerged from the shadows, a changed man marked by the crucible of his ordeal, Sarah Miller stood by his side, a silent witness to the fragile dance between truth and deception. In a moment of quiet reflection, they pondered the delicate balance that separated innocence from guilt, justice from manipulation. The VHS tapes, once harbingers of turmoil, now stood as relics of a journey through shadows and light, a reminder that sometimes the path to truth begins with a curious glance at an unexpected package bearing a name not meant for you. Story 22. The river flowed gently that morning, its surface smooth as glass, serene and undisturbed. The fisherman, lost in his own thoughts, almost missed the sight of a suitcase bobbing near the shore. At first glance, it seemed like a forgotten pile of old clothes, but as he drew closer, a pungent odor filled the air, thick, clinging, impossible to ignore. The case was wrapped in chains, its metal edges corroded by time and exposure. When authorities pried it open, they were met not by garments, but by a tangle of hair. Fingers curled in a frozen grip, and at the very bottom, a chilling note, "This isn't the first." Detective Sarah Mercer arrived at the scene, a delicate handkerchief pressed to her nose as she surveyed the grim discovery. The victim, a woman in her mid-30s with dark locks and now pallid skin marked by the water's touch. The medical examiner worked meticulously, cataloging every detail before the body was taken away. What struck Mercer most was not just the manner of disposal, but the eerie care taken in presenting the victim manicured nails, recently styled hair, dressed in expensive attire. She wasn't just discarded here, Mercer observed, her gaze fixed on the lapping waters against the muddy bank. She was arranged, showcased. The victim was identified as Catherine Walsh, a successful real estate agent specializing in luxury properties. Divorced, childless, she led a solitary life in an upscale neighborhood, Colleagues painted a picture of an ambitious, meticulous woman who kept her personal life closely guarded. Her disappearance was reported by her assistant when she failed to show up for a crucial showing with affluent clients. She wouldn't have missed that appointment, the assistant insisted, her voice unwavering. That sale would have been her crowning achievement. Investigators combed through Walsh's sleek, modern home. Everything was immaculate, almost unnaturally perfect. Designer furniture placed just so, not a speck of dust in sight. The fridge stocked with neatly labeled meals for each day. Wardrobe organized by color, shoes carefully tucked away. The only anomaly, an office drawer slightly ajar. Inside, a leather-bound journal was found. The final entry chillingly stated, "He's watching again. Same car, different plates." A delve into Walsh's digital footprint revealed a peculiar pattern in her emails, repetitive messages from unknown senders, all bearing the phrase, "I see your perfection," sent consistently at the same time on various days. Her internet searches hinted at a growing concern for security and self-defense tools. Connecting the dots, Mercer shared her insight with her partner. "Our perpetrator is methodical," she mused. "This wasn't a crime of passion, this was a ceremony." A breakthrough emerged from an unexpected source. A local pawn shop owner recognized Walsh's distinctive emerald necklace among the items missing from her belongings. The person who pawned it turned out to be a regular, unassuming maintenance worker named Michael Linden. Surveillance footage depicted Linden entering Walsh's building multiple times over months, sometimes with his maintenance cart, other times without, always when she was away showcasing properties. A search of Linden's modest apartment unveiled a chilling reality. Photographs of Walsh and other women adorned his walls, all resembling each other, all captured without their knowledge. Some images crossed out with crimson ink. Walsh was the third victim. Concealed behind a false panel in his closet was a macabre shrine. Each victim's possessions meticulously laid out, a hairbrush with strands, tissues stained with lipstick, keys, receipts, accompanied by a small notebook chronicling their routines, preferences, quirks. The interrogation room turned frigid when Linden was brought in. Despite his unassuming appearance and soft-spoken demeanor, he remained eerily composed when confronted with the evidence. "They were flawed," he eventually stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "They projected perfection, but I saw through their facade. Catherine's desk drawer was always in disarray. She missed a spot when applying her lipstick. Her perfection was a lie." The search for the first two victims mentioned in Linden's note led investigators to remote locations where two more suitcases were unearthed. Inside, women resembling Walsh, both real estate agents known for their meticulous attention to detail. During the trial, Linden sat motionless, his face a mask of indifference as prosecutors unveiled his elaborate rituals. For months, he had stalked each woman, infiltrating their lives, meticulously planning their final moments. His twisted rationale aimed to correct what he perceived as their imperfections, grooming them, adorning them in finery before extinguishing their lives. As the judge pronounced a sentence of life without parole, the victims' families watched in silence. For Detective Mercer, the case may have been officially closed, yet lingering questions persisted. What had triggered Linden's fixation on these specific women? What inner flaw was he attempting to erase through his gruesome acts? The river carried on its tranquil journey downstream, erasing all traces of the horror that had unfolded along its banks. But in the precinct on Mercer's desk lay copies of those haunting notebooks, a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of normalcy, shadows lurked. The most perilous predators often dwelt in plain sight, biding their time, seeking out the minute flaw that would expose their true nature. Story 23. She yearned to refresh the nursery before the little one's arrival. The walls bore a faded blue hue, carrying within them untold tales of bygone days. With each stroke of white paint, a hidden secret emerged, letters slowly materializing, then sharpening into focus. A message etched beneath the surface. Don't let it hear you. Her breath hitched. Stepping back, her eyes caught sight of it, tiny handprints in the fresh paint, too high for a child to reach. The revelation within the nursery of the Morgan house signaled the start of what would later be dubbed the Whispering House case. The young couple had acquired the Victorian abode just months prior, lured by an unbelievably low price. The realtor had mentioned only minor cosmetic issues, omitting any mention of the property's shadowed past. Detective Sarah Klein arrived at the doorstep, a notebook clutched in her hand. A woman answered, her belly swollen with child beneath paint-splattered overalls. Weariness etched in dark circles under her eyes. Sleep had eluded her. The detective observed the woman's trembling hands as she recounted the discovery of the message and handprints. The former owners vanished abruptly, the woman explained. Neighbors claimed they departed in the dead of night. No moving truck, just essentials packed into their car. Inside the historic dwelling, Detective Klein's footsteps echoed on weathered floorboards. Standing in the nursery, she scrutinized the half-painted wall. The cryptic message lingered where the painting abruptly ended. Beside it, 5 small handprints imprinted in the wet paint, positioned at a height of an adult's shoulder. Back at the precinct, Detective Klein delved into the property records. The house had changed hands 8 times in 30 years, a staggering turnover rate. Each family barely lasted 2 years. More troubling were the child welfare reports linked to 3 of those families. Children spoke of whispers from the walls and eyes watching them in the night. The detective delved deeper, unearthing construction records and historical accounts. The house once belonged to Alina Blackwood, a wealthy widow who ran a small orphanage there during the industrial era. Newspaper clippings referenced 5 missing children from her care. Authorities believed they had fled, a common occurrence among orphans of that time. When Alina passed, renovators discovered a concealed chamber behind the nursery wall. Inside lay children's belongings, tiny shoes, toys, and garments, but no remains. The investigation unveiled a chilling pattern as Detective Klein interviewed former residents. Families with children reported peculiar incidents, toys rearranged overnight, echoes of childish laughter in empty corridors, and crayon drawings materializing on walls. Most dismissed these occurrences as mere figments of imagination until the writings surfaced. The message varied slightly. Don't let them find you. Don't make a sound. Don't let it hear you. Always in the same script, always unveiled during nursery repainting. A linguistic expert matched the writing to Alina Blackwood's journals. Even more unnerving were the handprints, unchanged in size and placement across generations, despite different children residing in the house. The investigation took a macabre turn when the detective persuaded the current owners to permit ground-penetrating radar in the basement. Anomalies in the readings pointed to 5 distinct shapes beneath the concrete floor, each resembling a child's size. Upon breaking through the concrete, a grim truth emerged. 5 small sets of remains arranged in a circle. Forensic analysis indicated the children perished during Alina's tenure in the house. Each child wore a pendant engraved with their name, the 5 orphans who were believed to have fled. Luminol sprayed across the nursery revealed glowing handprints on every wall, concealed beneath layers of paint, unseen by the naked eye. Countless handprints, as if the children had tried to escape. Alina's journals, recovered from county archives, exposed her twisted beliefs. She thought orphaned children possessed a unique spiritual energy. By confining them to the hidden chamber, she aimed to harness their vitality to prolong her own life. The children had etched warnings on the wall, hoping future inhabitants would uncover their tragedy. The case concluded with a proper burial for the 5 victims, their fate now acknowledged as murder, not escape. Following the grim closure, the house remained vacant, the expectant couple refusing to return even for their possessions. Detective Klein submitted her final report, enclosing images of the luminol illuminated handprints and the hidden message. Justice prevailed for the victims, yet an enigmatic presence lingered in that house, a force transcending paint layers and time. The nursery walls were raised during cleanup, but workers attested to hearing children's whispers amidst the debris. None dared to return after nightfall. The dwelling was ultimately condemned, another cold case consigned to the archives, an emblem of resolved justice but unanswered spiritual queries. The detective retained one photograph from the investigation, 5 luminol handprints gleaming in the shadows, a haunting testament to crimes that endure beyond fresh coats of paint. Story 24. The old wooden plank gave way beneath her foot with a subtle creak, stirring her senses from their slumber. She knelt down, her fingers tracing the edges of the loosened board, sensing a hidden truth lurking beneath the surface. The floor, once believed to be steadfast, now whispered of secrets waiting to be unveiled. With gentle determination, she lifted the boards, revealing a dark, mysterious void beneath her new abode. At first, only shadows danced before her eyes, accompanied by the musty scent of neglect. But as her vision adjusted to the dimness, shapes emerged from the darkness: a mattress, a chair, and nestled in the corner, a weathered notebook adorned with pages bearing a single name, repeated endlessly: her name. Detective Morgan Reed stood silently behind Sarah Coleman, observing the tremor of fear that gripped her at the sight below. It was not merely the discovery of a hidden chamber that unsettled Sarah. It was the violation of her sanctuary, the intrusion of a sinister presence into what should have been a fresh beginning. "Don't disturb anything," Detective Reed's voice was steady, a beacon of calm amidst the shadows. With a click, her flashlight pierced the darkness, illuminating a chilling tableau. The walls were adorned with photographed snapshots of Sarah in her most mundane moments, captured in a voyeuristic embrace. A shrine of obsession meticulously crafted beneath her unsuspecting feet. Sarah had acquired the quaint cottage from the estate of Walter Green, an enigmatic recluse who had departed from this world without leaving a trace of kin. The property had stood vacant for months, its history shrouded in silence. The real estate listing had painted a picture of charm and promise, with no hint of the darkness that lay hidden within its walls. "I never met him, the previous owner." Sarah's voice was a fragile whisper. The neighbors spoke of his seclusion. "I was told the basement access had long been sealed off. That's what the inspection report stated." As the crime scene investigators descended upon the hidden chamber, their tools echoed against the wooden floors, a solemn cadence of revelation. Every detail was meticulously documented, evidence catalogued, and the haunting remnants of Walter Green's obsession extracted from the depths. Forensic scrutiny unveiled a myriad of fingerprints, all belonging to the phantom of the past, Walter Green himself. What sent shivers down the spines of the investigators was the timeline they unraveled. Through utility records and dated photographs, it was revealed that Walter had been shadowing Sarah for at least 3 years before his demise, a ghostly presence lingering in the periphery of her life, unseen and unknown. The progression of such fixation is alarming, the department psychologist remarked during a somber briefing. From fantasy to obsession, from obsession to action. The hidden chamber suggests a sinister intent, a plan waiting to be set in motion. Detective Reed's inquiries took an unexpected turn when she interviewed Walter's former colleague from the local shopping center maintenance department. The man fidgeted nervously, his eyes betraying a tale he was hesitant to reveal. Walter spoke of her, his voice trembled. He would say she reminded him of someone else. I thought it was harmless, the ramblings of an aging heart I never imagined. His words trailed off, lost in the weight of the unspoken truth. Did he ever speak of any designs involving her? Reed prodded gently. Not explicitly, but there was this phrase he would repeat. She belongs with me, he would say. I dismissed it as mere fancy. With a warrant in hand, Reed delved into the remnants of Walter's life, untouched since his passing. Within his workplace locker, a key was discovered, a key that unlocked a mystery leading to a storage unit registered in his name. The metallic door screeched open, unveiling a chilling replica of Sarah's former life furniture and decor meticulously recreated to mirror her existence. A mannequin adorned with a wig akin to Sarah's own sat at a replica desk, a haunting echo of a delusion spiraling out of control. A calendar marked with a date circled in crimson ink, bearing a single word that sent shivers down their spines together. Further investigation unveiled Walter's troubled past, a history marred by institutionalization due to an obsession with a teacher in his youth. His affliction with erotomania, a delusion of love unreturned, had seemingly lain dormant for decades until Sarah unwittingly ignited the embers of his fixation. As crime scene photos were spread across the table, Detective Reed's voice carried a tinge of sorrow. In his mind, they were destined to be together. He lived and died in the grip of a fantasy that consumed him. Could there have been an encounter, a spark that set this tragedy in motion? A fellow detective pondered. Reed shook her head solemnly. Sometimes these obsessions need only a whisper of possibility, a fragment of hope to take root. For him, it was enough. Sarah made the heart-wrenching decision to part ways with the house, unable to erase the specter of Walter's fixation from its walls. During the final walkthrough with her realtor, she stood amidst the echoes of her past, a haunted look in her eyes. I cannot shake the thought of what might have been. Her voice carried a weight of loss. If not for that loose floorboard, how long would I have dwelled here, unaware of the eyes that watched my every move, unaware of the secrets concealed beneath my very feet. With Walter's demise, the case was closed, marked as stalking with intent to abduct, a chilling testament to a tragedy averted. Sarah, now a ghost in her own life, relocated far from the shadows that haunted her, forever changed by the encounter with a darkness she never knew existed. Detective Reed, in silent vigil, occasionally checked on her, a silent guardian watching over a life spared from the jaws of fate. The cottage passed into new hands, ignorant of its grim history, the hidden rooms sealed away, its secrets buried beneath fresh floorboards. Life moved on, the world turning as it always had. But for those privy to the truth, the story of the room beneath the floor lingered, a chilling reminder of the unseen perils that lurk in the recesses of the familiar, of monsters who fade before facing justice, and of souls who narrowly escape the clutches of their own demise. Story 25. The old apartment exuded a sense of history, its time-worn walls holding secrets within their cracks. The heating system groaned softly, a familiar melody that echoed through the pipes, creating a haunting symphony. To the occupant, these sounds were merely part of the building's character, comforting in their predictability. But one night, everything changed. A whisper, delicate yet unmistakable, drifted through the vents like a ghostly breath. It was not the usual background noise of neighbors or the building settling. This voice was intimate, calling out a name with eerie precision. The listener's heart quickened as she leaned closer, drawn to the mysterious presence beyond the grate. I know you can hear me, the voice teased, playful yet tinged with an otherworldly quality that sent shivers down her spine. Detective Morgan Shaw entered the silent apartment, a chill settling in the air as she focused on the rusted vent cover, a portal to the unknown. The forensic team moved around her with practiced efficiency, capturing the scene in flashes of light as they pieced together the puzzle left behind by Alina Reeves, a missing soul whose fate had intertwined with the building's dark past. Officer Patel's voice broke the silence, recounting Alina's eerie experiences of voices in the vents, dismissed as mere quirks of an aging infrastructure. But Shaw, with her keen eye for detail, noticed the desperation etched into the metal around the vent, a silent plea for escape. Alina, a beloved kindergarten teacher with a penchant for nurturing life, had succumbed to a paranoia that whispered through the halls long before her disappearance. Her absence left a void in the lives she touched, a mystery begging to be solved. As Shaw delved deeper into Alina's world, she uncovered a tapestry of fear woven into the fabric of her existence. The meticulously arranged room, the chair positioned beneath the vent like a sentinel, bore witness to a silent vigil that had unfolded in the shadows. The evidence whispered of a connection forged in darkness, of a presence that lurked within the walls, unseen yet palpable. Fibers intertwined, fingerprints left behind, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a truth more sinister than Shaw could have imagined. Alina's phone recordings unveiled a chilling dialogue between reality and the unknown, a dance of voices that spiraled into a crescendo of dread. The building itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the secrets buried within its foundations to be unearthed. The history of the apartment unraveled like a tapestry of nightmares, each thread revealing a tenant's descent into madness, a dance with whispers that led to a point of no return. Harold Weber, the enigmatic superintendent, stood at the center of it all, a silent observer with keys to every door. As Shaw peeled back the layers of deceit, a hidden passage emerged from the shadows, a conduit for a voyeuristic predator who had made the building his hunting ground. The walls whispered of his presence, of a twisted fascination that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Weber's meticulously kept records painted a portrait of obsession, a digital shrine to his victims that echoed with the hollow laughter of a madman. The truth, once buried beneath layers of silence, now stood exposed in all its macabre glory. The trial was a somber affair, a reckoning with the darkness that had tainted the building's soul. Weber's facade of sanity crumbled as the jury rendered its verdict, sealing his fate within the walls that had borne witness to his atrocities. As he was led away, a smile played upon his lips, a final defiance against a world that had failed to silence the whispers in his mind. Shaw watched him disappear into the shadows, knowing that the echoes of his crimes would linger long after his presence had faded. The apartment building, now a hollow shell of its former self, stood as a testament to the horrors that had transpired within its walls. New owners came and went, unaware of the specters that whispered in the night, the chilling reminder of a past that refused to be forgotten. Story 26. In the attic of their newly acquired Victorian house, Sarah and Michael stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a porcelain doll with painted blue eyes that seemed to follow them. Ignoring the initial unease it brought, they dismissed it as just another forgotten relic of the past. However, that night a strange sensation crept over them as they drifted off to sleep. The air grew heavy, the silence oppressive. And when dawn broke, the doll had mysteriously vanished from the attic, reappearing at the foot of their bed. Sarah and Michael, a young couple enamored by the house's intricate details and enigmatic allure, unknowingly stepped into a narrative intertwined with the dwelling's history. Detective Rachel Winters entered the scene on a crisp autumn morning, greeted by a chilling tableau in the master bedroom. The female victim lay in an unnatural pose, eyes wide with fear, while the male victim seemed frozen in a futile attempt to flee. As Detective Winters meticulously combed through the eerie crime scene, she noted the deliberate arrangement of the bodies, reminiscent of dolls carefully posed in a macabre display. The investigation unfolded with unsettling accounts from neighbors, a shadow glimpsed in the upstairs window, phantom laughter echoing through the empty halls. Forensic analysis uncovered traces of antique doll materials scattered throughout the house, concentrated around the victims and the attic. A perplexing absence of any tangible evidence pointing to an intruder left the investigative team grasping at shadows. Delving into the property's dark past revealed a pattern of tragic deaths and inexplicable occurrences stretching back decades. A newspaper clipping hinted at a troubled doll maker who had once resided in the house, his final creation bearing an uncanny resemblance to the doll found by Sarah and Michael. As Detective Winters unearthed the connection between the victims and the attic renovations, a series of old photographs shed light on the sinister history woven into the walls. Images of the dollmaker's collection hinted at a malevolent presence lurking within the house, the dolls' shifting positions hinting at an otherworldly force at play. A revelation from a distant relative of the dollmaker unraveled the mystery further, weaving tales of occult rituals and bound spirits into the fabric of the case. With no tangible suspects or logical explanations, the investigation reached an impasse, leaving Detective Winters grappling with the inexplicable. When the doll vanished from police custody under baffling circumstances, the enigma deepened, shrouding the house in an aura of foreboding. The cycle repeated as the property changed hands, each new owner confronting the echoes of a dark legacy. Detective Winters, haunted by the unresolved case, chose an early retirement, carrying with her a final memento, a photograph encapsulating the chilling truth she had uncovered. The new owners, wary of the attic's secrets, opted to preserve its untouched silence, unaware of the spectral presence that lingered in the shadows. And so, on quiet nights, a faint whisper of laughter would drift through the neighborhood, a reminder of a past intertwined with the enigmatic doll that had slipped through the cracks of reality, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a legacy of spectral intrigue. Story 27. She cleared the mist from the mirror, gazing at her reflection. Everything seemed normal, yet a sense of unease crept over her. A flicker caught in the corner of her eye, a movement not her own. When she turned away, her reflection remained, still watching. This was the beginning of the enigmatic tale of Rebecca Thorne, a story that puzzled investigators and lingered in the thoughts of a whole community for years to come. Rebecca resided in a modest apartment in a serene suburban area, leading a solitary life. Known for her meticulous nature and reserved demeanor, she kept to herself while maintaining polite interactions with her neighbors. Her occupation as a data analyst for a medium-sized company structured her days with routine and precision, giving no hint that she would emerge as the focal point of a perplexing criminal inquiry. The unusual occurrences started subtly. Objects in Rebecca's home began to shift inexplicably, no items missing, just rearranged. A coffee mug on a different shelf, books reorganized, her toothbrush out of place. At first, she attributed these odd happenings to fatigue from long hours spent immersed in work, staring at screens until her vision blurred. Detective Marion Shaw received the initial complaint when Rebecca, after enduring weeks of disturbances, finally reached out to the authorities. The initial assessment suggested no criminal activity, leaning more towards a concern for mental well-being rather than law enforcement intervention. Shaw documented the issue but placed it among the pile of lower priority cases, citing the absence of concrete evidence, no signs of forced entry or missing items, only a woman plagued by a sense of disquiet within her own home. The pivotal moment arrived with the incident in the bathroom mirror. During her subsequent interaction with the police, Rebecca recounted the eerie experience in vivid detail, the sensation of her reflection moving independently, the constant feeling of being observed even in solitude. This time she presented proof, footage from a security camera she had installed aimed at her front door. The video unveiled a chilling discovery that sent shivers down the spines of seasoned officers. It showed Rebecca leaving for work in the morning, followed by someone identical to her using a key to enter the apartment 20 minutes later. Forensic experts scrutinized the footage for signs of tampering or manipulation, finding none. The individual captured on camera mirrored Rebecca's movements, attire, and even carried her distinct leather bag. However, according to time-stamped records from her workplace security system, Rebecca had already checked into her office building across town. "We're facing a doppelganger scenario," Detective Shaw informed her superiors. "Someone who has meticulously studied Ms. Thorne and can replicate her with uncanny precision." The investigation deepened as fingerprints in the apartment matched solely with Rebecca's, devoid of foreign DNA. Neighbors reported nothing out of the ordinary, just Rebecca's routine comings and goings. One neighbor, Mrs. Keller, recalled greeting Rebecca upon her return one evening, receiving no response, a departure from her usual behavior but not raising alarms. Rebecca initiated a log of disturbances as minor changes in her living space escalated. Unexplained disappearances of food from her fridge, searches on her computer she didn't conduct, and unsettlingly, selfies on her phone that resembled her but held no recollection of capturing. Some images portrayed a subtly off-kilter expression, a too-wide smile or overly intense eyes. "I feel as though I'm losing my mind," she confided to Detective Shaw during their third meeting. Or perhaps someone is orchestrating this psychological turmoil. The breakthrough emerged when a pattern surfaced in the security footage. The doppelganger only infiltrated when Rebecca departed for specific pre-scheduled engagements like therapy sessions, yoga classes, or Sunday grocery trips. These were activities with set durations, indicating a comprehensive knowledge of her routine. "Your daily habits have been meticulously observed," Shaw elucidated. "This is not random intrusion, but a targeted surveillance and infiltration." A forensic psychologist theorized that they were dealing with a fixation case, a person fixated on assuming Rebecca's identity, perhaps aiming to supplant her entirely. Such instances were uncommon but documented in psychological archives. Typically, the perpetrator underwent a psychological rupture, fixating on a target embodying traits they covet: stability, beauty, success, normalcy. The investigation honed in on a former colleague of Rebecca's, Lily Winters, who had been terminated due to escalating erratic behavior. Lily had closely collaborated with Rebecca, often remarking on their similarities. Post-dismissal, she sent Rebecca a series of unsettling emails, one stating, "We could be the same person. Sometimes I feel more like you than you do." Detective Shaw secured a warrant to search Lily's residence, unveiling a chilling revelation that transformed the case from disconcerting to horrifying. A room in Lily's abode had been converted into a shrine-like replica of Rebecca's bedroom. the walls adorned with numerous photos of Rebecca entering her home, shopping, meeting friends, images captured without her consent. The closet housed replicas of Rebecca's attire, alongside makeup matching her preferred brands, coupled with detailed observations of her behaviors, speech patterns, and daily routines. Most disturbing were the practice videos where Lily imitated Rebecca's gait, gestures, and expressions, progressing from clumsy attempts to near-perfect replication. "She aspired to be me," a subdued Rebecca murmured upon viewing the evidence. "She wasn't merely imitating, she was erasing me." Forensic analysts uncovered sophisticated tools for crafting duplicate keys and replicating electronic access cards. Lily had orchestrated an intricate system to monitor Rebecca's movements, including a calendar predicting her schedule with meticulous accuracy. What remained elusive was Lily's endgame motive. Journals discovered in Lily's dwelling contained rambling entries shifting between first and third person, occasionally referencing Rebecca as both me and her within the same passage. The final entry sent a chill through investigators. "Soon, only one of us will prevail. The stronger version shall endure." Upon authorities moved to apprehend Lily, she had vanished without a trace, leaving behind signs of an abrupt departure, drawers ajar, certain devices missing. A nationwide alert was issued, and Rebecca was relocated to a secure location under continuous surveillance. For weeks, every place linked to her previous life underwent scrutiny with no sign of Lily. The case concluded with a disquieting revelation when a security personnel at Rebecca's former workplace reported an anomaly. Rebecca had been sighted entering the building despite being on leave. Subsequent security footage confirmed the unsettling truth. An individual mirroring Rebecca had accessed the premises using a valid ID card, proceeded to her former desk, and meticulously sifted through her files before departing. Meanwhile, the real Rebecca remained concealed in a safeguarded sanctuary, incapable of being present at the office. The unsettling reality dawned. Lily had not fled, but executed her plan. She now inhabited Rebecca's existence, seamlessly stepping into her life while the genuine Rebecca remained in seclusion. The case remains unresolved, with Lily Winters eluding capture. Rebecca Thorne chose not to return to her former life, opting to forge a new identity in an undisclosed location. Detective Shaw preserves a photograph on her desk, two women bearing a striking resemblance. One is Rebecca Thorne, the other Lily Winters. At times, she scrutinizes their features, seeking variances, the subtle cues that set them apart. The most chilling aspect Shaw imparts to new recruits is not that someone can resemble or sound like you. It's the desire to assume your identity so fervently that they erase themselves in the process. Our identity is not merely what we present to the world, but what we safeguard most vigilantly. And at times, we comprehend its worth only when someone endeavors to seize it.